Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending this meeting of the Planning Committee on Thursday, the 11th of November. My name is Councillor Caleb Tomlinson. I'm the chair of the committee. The meeting is being recorded and the stream will be live on YouTube. Address for this is displayed on the agenda for the meeting. If you're attending the meeting because you're a member of the public who has registered to speak, please note you have a time limit of 4 minutes. You will be timed. I will confirm when 4 minutes runs out, and you should then finish, or if in the middle of making a point, wind up within a few seconds and finish speaking. Please come to the microphone when you're asked to, press the red button and introduce yourself and make your presentation. Voting will be undertaken using the electronic system. So we're not on roll call anymore. We're on the buttons. Yeah, we're back to normal, guys and gals. So if you're in favour of an application, press the for button. If you're against it, press the against button. I'll begin with some housekeeping. Please ensure if you have a mobile phone, it's on silent. Okay, if the fire alarm goes off tonight, it's not a drill. There will be a fire somewhere in the building, and the fire exits are just behind you there. We'll meet on the car park outside. Okay, the toilets are in the foyer if you need them. So we will start off with the introductions. I've introduced myself. Clockwise, please.
Good evening, Jodie Ingram, solicitor.
Charlotte Lynch, Democratic Services Officer.
Councillor Colin Sharples.
Councillor Gareth Watson for Count Green, Gregson Lane.
Chris Lomax, Wantley East.
Good evening, everyone. I'm John Hesketh. I represent Longton and Hutton West.
Good evening. I'm Councillor Harry Hancock. I represent Broadoak Ward, Pemberley.
Good evening. I'm Councillor Damien Bretherton and I represent Walton-le-Dale West.
Evening. I'm Matthew Trafford. I represent Gloucester Call.
Good evening. I'm Councillor Mary Green. I represent Moss Side and Midge Hall.
Good evening. I'm Will Adams and I represent Middleford and Penwitham.
Good evening. Councillor Phil Smith and I represent New Longton and Hutton East.
Good evening, Councillor James Flannery, Middleford, Penwitham.
Good evening, Chris Sowerby, Planning Officer.
Good evening, Janice Crook, Planning Officer.
Good evening, Stephen Brown, Head of Development Management.
Okay, good evening, welcome to one and all. Do we have apologies for absence, please, Charlotte?
Yes, Chair, we've had apologies from Councillors Donoghue, Moon and Yates, and Councillors Breverton and Trafford will act as substitutes this evening.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Right, declarations of interest. I have a declaration of interest in item number 8, which is the land opposite Ye Old Hobbin at Bamber Bridge. I will not be taking part in the discussion or the presentation. I will be vacating the chair. We will have to vote for a replacement chair on that, and I would like to nominate Councillor James Flannery. If anyone else has got a declaration on this interest, you cannot vote on the chairmanship. Is that okay? Any other declarations, please? Councillor Trafford, Councillor Bretherton, Councillor Lomax, Councillor Mary Green. So Councillor Trafford.
Sorry, which one's this?
The Hobbin one.
Yeah, number 8, same as you, Chair, so I'll be leaving for that agenda item.
Councillor Bretherton? Yes, Councillor Lomax?
Yep, same here, I'm lead.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Green?
Yeah, I'm declaring an interest on item 10. It's just for completeness. It's a personal interest because I am in receipt of a pension as a former employee of the Ministry of Justice and a resident of the adjacent ward, but I live about 2 miles away from the application, but it's just for completeness.
Right, we'll move on to item number 4 this evening, the minutes of the meeting held on the 7th of October 2021. Just bear with me 1 second, please. Oh yes, that would help. So can we go to the vote for the chair for item number 8? Councillor Flannery, could you vote for or against? If you're not taking part in, we don't vote, okay? All right, that's unanimous. Councillor Flannery will be taking the chair for item number 8. All right, item number 4, the minutes of the meeting held on the 7th of October 2021. I'm aware of some confusion about the reason for deferring the champagne application at the last committee meeting. Having discussed with officers, reviewed the live stream and read a word-for-word verbatim transcript, I'm happy that the committee voted to defer the application to allow highway and delivery concerns to be explored. I appreciate that some members expressed a view that they would like the developer to consult with the residents, but I am satisfied that this was a hope rather than what was actually voted on, because as a committee we cannot demand a developer speaks to residents. I can see why this may have caused confusion and hope that residents' queries will be answered by the presentation and discussions this evening. Okay, so do I have a seconder for the minutes of the meeting held on the 7th of October? Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I'll second those, Chair.
Thank you. So can we go to the Okay, I'll sign those. Do we have any appeal decisions?
We don't on this occasion, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Stephen. We'll move on then to item number 6, the Champagne Indian Restaurant, 97 Pope Lane, Penwortham. And Chris, if you would like to make your presentation, please. Thank you.
Just 1 second, just having a bit of technical issues here. Thank you, Chair. Members will recall this application was considered at the previous Planning Committee meeting in October. The application was deferred with a number of issues raised by the committee as detailed in the report. The applicant has met with officers, and on the point of parking, the applicant is keen to highlight that county highways have raised no objections to the proposal, and that to reduce the floor area of the units to provide additional car parking would make the development unviable. The applicant has, however, identified however, will explore parking restrictions once operators have been identified to ensure that space is fairly available. On the point of Sunday deliveries, the applicant has contacted a number of food store operators, all of which would require Sunday deliveries as an option in order to commit to the site. The applicant can, however, agree to reduced hours for deliveries on Sundays as detailed within condition 14 on the report. The applicant is keen to highlight that other food stores nearby are all permitted to have Sunday deliveries. The committee had also asked the applicant to consider the 7 a.m. till 7 a.m. till 11 p.m. use of the extraction system on Unit 4, as previously proposed. Having considered the types of potential traders from Unit 4, the applicant has advised this can be reduced to 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. as per condition 17. Of particular concern to the committee and residents was the use of HGVs. On the screen is the swept path analysis for the worst case scenario of a 14.9 metre HGV as previously presented, which County Highways raised no objections to. The applicant has contacted food store operators, all of which state a preference for the option of articulated HGV deliveries, of which the white lorry is an example. The food store operators have, however, confirmed that a reduction to 12-metre HGVs, of which the blue lorry is an example, can be agreed if necessary. This would be secured by condition 27. There are no objections to the proposal from County Highways or any other statutory consultee. For these reasons and those contained within the report, the application is recommended for approval, subject to the imposition of conditions. So, thank you, Chair.
Right, thanks for your presentation, Chris. I have I have 4 members of the public wishing to speak in objection, and I have 1 member of the public who is supporting the application. So I'll take the objectors first. Mr. Voronovich, I hope I've said that correctly. If you'd like to come to the table, in fact, I've just introduced you, so and you will have, you can introduce yourself. Once you've introduced yourself, you have 4 minutes to make your representation. Okay?
Yeah. Is that okay? Can you hear that? Good evening, Chris Voronovich. Right. On Woodville Road, the developer's computer-generated sweep path analysis only shows vehicles parked on the residential side of the road for its 15-metre HGV accessibility to work. In reality, vehicles are parked on each side of the road, so according to his own analysis, even 1 car out of his perfect scenario will block his access contrary to policy A1, and yet this fact is ignored by Highways. We are not allowed to show you photographs. If the turn into Woodville Road is impaired by parked vehicles, where will the HGVs go? Parking on the pavement or obstructing residents' drives is illegal, also contrary to policy H1. Or, if once committed to the turn into Woodville Road and the parked vehicle further up the road blocks progress, the back of the HGV will also block Port Lane, causing gridlock, but again, no comment from Highways. If the HGV driver decides that his only choice but to pass Woodville Road and try again, it's either through the Kingsfold estate or a round trip of a mile to reach Woodville Road for another attempt, causing yet more environmental pollution. What happens if there's already a parked delivery vehicle servicing the other units? Will the HGV block Woodville Road until the other vehicle moves, or drive through Kingsfold estate with parked cars further obstructing his progress? Highways have treated this development as if nothing exists in the area. No traffic, no residents, no out-of-place parked cars, no pedestrians, no existing businesses, no safety issues, just a blank canvas for the pleasure and the maximising of profits for the developer. Highways have even ignored Godwin's Fish and Chip Shop on the corner of Port Lane, which opens 6 days a week with extensive training hours and whose many customers park on Woodville Road and along the pavements on Port Lane as far as the junction, regardless of parking restrictions. Architects, professional HGV drivers and residents have objected with valid concerns and quoted breaches of policies which they have raised through the planning process. These may have been commented on by planning but dismissed as irrelevant. because of the recommendation for approval. Highways have also ignored logistical and access problems, pedestrian motorist safety and the persistent pavement parking. The only sincerity is from Penwortham Town Council, who objected to this and past developments and has for years asked the local authority to rectify these parking issues. It's against Highways' mission statement to put developers' interests before the safety and well-being of the public with no proved just opinion. Highways are directly responsible for the existing parking issues as they failed to uphold policy regulations in the past and didn't object to business planning applications with inadequate parking provision and having misled successive planning committees who acted in good faith on their advice. Everything we say on parking in this area can be proved by reviewing the CCTV on the corner of Port Lane. What can't speak can't mislead. Highways, Planning, South Ribble, the LCC refuse to look at these recordings so they can stay in denial. We ask for an official, independent traffic and parking inquiry on these issues raised by residents, as we have no confidence whatsoever in the Highways report. Please reject this unwanted, unnecessary, unsustainable and environmentally bankrupt development. Thank you. The addendum offer of a shorter 13-metre HGV is unrealistic, as the developer will get what the supplier decides to send. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks for your presentation, Mr. Vodonovich. Do we have a Mr. Stephen Flynn? Okay, Mr. Flynn, you have 4 minutes, okay?
Before I press the button, my name is Stephen Flynn. I live at 66 Port Lane, which is right opposite the development. Port Lane and Woodville Road being treated as second-class citizens by the planners. The Liverpool Road Tesco's, which has recently been built, has a 4-metre sound defending fence and gates surrounding the loading bay to protect the residents' amenities. We get a 2-metre green chicken wire fence, no soundproofing or privacy for the residents from the view, noise and exhaust pollution of the goods yards. This is contrary to H1 and Central Links Policy 28, and also I think goes against COP 26. The Tesco's yard has a landscaped entrance and is across the road from the residential properties. We get HGVs turning into the goods yard a couple of feet or even lesser distance from the Woodville Court residential properties. How would you like it, ladies and gentlemen, if you lived there? The planners think it's okay, and the computer and the sign highway says it's achievable, but nevertheless the residents' amenities are lost. Unfortunately, the drivers are not computers, but the constraint of the sweep path through the goods yard to pursue profit over safety margin will put drivers' skills to the limit and beyond each time we drive through the yard. This lack of space will put the employees and public at rest. Why are these safety issues ignored by Highways? The banksman has been dumped. How will the security gates be operated? If they are electric, a flashing light and audio warning will be mandatory to warn the public. This will cause disturbance to the residents. Why has the planning department not investigated this requirement? It is outrageous that the egress point onto Port Lane is to be reopened. This entrance was closed off some 20 years ago to protect pedestrian safety. Lancashire County Council Highways needs to explain to the public how a pedestrian, especially a child standing on this busy pavement, can ascertain the swing path of an articulated HGV pulling out from between two buildings, avoiding car parks at the pavement outside the chip shop, and then driving along at a pavement and angled towards them. The vision spares are also compromised, as drivers will concentrate on not hitting the two buildings as they cross the pavement, putting pedestrians and small children below the driver's eye view. This is contrary to policy G17 prejudice to pedestrian safety. This is a one-way system, so there'll be considerably more traffic than just HGVs using this exit, because staff and other vehicles will need to service the development. The developer's own submission under design page 6 of paragraph 4.4, which I presume you got copies of, states the requirement is 53 car parking spaces. Booths, Tesco's and Sainsbury's on Birch Avenue comply. Google Earth proves this. So why is this development only 20? That's 33 spaces short. Not forgetting it's a supermarket, 2 retail units and a takeaway. This shortfall goes against local policies and will damage existing businesses. Considering the existing pavement parking and obstruction issues, why is that acceptable? The appearance of development does not match the surrounding properties, regardless of what the planners say. They offer a gaudy graphics with a 4.5 metre illuminated sign, which in my view is only suitable for Blackpool's Golden Mile. And don't forget, I'm going to have to see this all the time, not the gateway to our community. Everything we say on parking can be proved by reviewing the CCTV on the corner of Pope Lane, right outside our house. What can speak can't mislead. Highways, planning, South Ribble and Lancashire County Council refuse to look at it. Why? My issue is please refuse this application, and I thank you very much.
Okay, thanks for your presentation, Mr. Flynn. Okay, do we have Judith Vodonovich? You certainly can. We will sort that out for you. That might be better than the water. Just while we're waiting, have we all received the supplementaries on this application? Yeah. All right, thanks for that. Okay, Mrs. Vodonovich, if you'd like to make your presentation, we have 4 minutes, okay?
Okay, thank you. Good evening. Point 111 of Agenda Item 7 states, where guidance seeks the provision of 50 car parking spaces plus 3 disabled, County Highway says that 20 planned would not severely impact highway safety or capacity. Well, of that 20, only 15 are for customers. And out of that 15, there are 2 for electric cars, 2 disabled spaces, leaving just 11 spaces for customers. This is 60% lower than the level recommended in South Ribble Borough Council parking standards. The justification for ignoring this being that highways consider the parking in the area is sufficient. Well, they're wrong. They may have visited the area, but I have lived here for 33 years, and I see the daily struggle for parking spaces and the consequential danger to pedestrians, especially children. There has been a deliberate policy of allowing new businesses with inadequate parking around this junction. Each time we are told there is plenty of parking in the area, there isn't. The shops by Bargain Booths have 7 spaces, which are very tight, leaving limited access to the shops. Betfred customers share the development entrance to access their car park, and the laundrette customers also vie for space outside their respective businesses. It would be negligent to look at this development in isolation and say that we can ignore guidance, because ignoring guidance in every other planning application on this corner has created this present mess. Presently, the 11 parking spaces are related to the large unit, ignoring the other 2 units and the takeaway. Addendum 6 states plenty of availability as customers will be visiting for only 5 or 6 minutes, an incredulous scenario, but it does highlight the amount of fumes emitted into the air if each parking space will have up to 10 cars manoeuvring in and out of every hour. Has COP26 taught us nothing? The developer says that the reduction of floor space to increase off-road parking provision would make the scheme not commercially viable. Are you going to allow profit to be a valid reason to ignore your own guidance at the expense of a neighbourhood already mired in a parking nightmare? Highways are wrong to say the sight lines for customers when entering and exiting the car park are achievable. Buses stop every 10 minutes, sometimes waiting several minutes to adjust timetable synchronisation at the stop next to the customer's entrance. You can't see through a bus. Opposite this entrance, cars reverse into the road from the existing businesses. There will be cars driving in and out of this development around the buses, whilst cars are manoeuvring inside this new car park of 11 spaces. Remembering, the developer stated they'll only be there for 5 or 6 minutes, so that's a lot of manoeuvring. If a vehicle enters this car park when it is full, it will have to reverse out, as there is no room to turn round. Many drivers will decide it is not worth the hassle of trying to access this car park and will park on the road or the pavement instead. You cannot look at this development in isolation. It is part of the gateway to Kingsfold. If you allow this overdevelopment with its inadequate parking to be passed, then you will have had it added yet another layer of danger to an already dangerous area. And don't take my word for it, look at that CCTV camera. It'll tell us whether highways or residents really know what's going on with parking in the area. The residents wish to see this site sympathetically developed. Presently, it's an eyesore, but this is in part because the developer has allowed the site to deteriorate, presumably to further his application success. This is not and should not be a binary decision, that if we don't want the present derelict building, then we must accept this plan, because the developer has done his best to resolve the issues. Sadly, he's given lots of excuses, but minimal action or change. This development is not appropriate for the area. It is too big, lacks parking, and I urge this committee to reject this application. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much for your presentation, Mrs. Vodonovich. Do we have a Zoran Barosh? Mr. Barosh, if you press the button that says speak, and then if you start your presentation, you have 4 minutes, okay?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak as a local resident and practising architect. I wish to start by saying we support the redevelopment of this site as it has become a prominently neglected corner of our community. With this in mind, we wish to turn our attention to development as proposed, reviewing the project with our best intentions for this prominent location. This redevelopment will probably be the largest construction project in the area since the plough was originally built. The impact is therefore considerable for our community, with the implications for the fabric of the urban environment, highways and public health. We acknowledge that minor revisions to the plans have taken place since the original submission, and those updates are to be welcome. However, a number of concerns still remain. These include 4 items: vehicle access and parking, servicing, overdevelopment, and the materials proposed for the building. As highways and servicing issues have been covered at length by other objectors, I will focus more on the proposal for us from an architectural perspective. The Kingsfold urban hub development historically is as a series of small, medium retail and service outlets servicing local residents for decades. It is arguable that most day-to-day provisions can be already obtained locally. If larger facilities are required, then within a short distance, the new large Tesco store is now also available, together with all the other outlets on Liverpool Road. The site is located within a small retail area at the centre of a residential conurbation, and therefore we question the need for such a large commercial unit at its core. This development dwarfs older domestic scale properties with a scant regard for its context. The development is inward looking and appears to be an attempt to maximise the floor area rather than providing a meaningful contribution to the skyline. If this is questioned, we would strongly urge a street scene elevation is produced along Pope Lane, as this would demonstrate the disproportionate scale of this development within its surroundings. This overscale building is accentuated further by placing Unit 1 close to the back of pavement line with an overbearing and imposing effect. The proposed unit also contradicts the suburban character, as existing buildings along Pope Lane are set back by the length of a parking bay to give the area its residential character. The inappropriate scale of development is also reflected in the materials proposed. The overscaled composite kingspan cladding is more appropriate for a larger commercial development, not a suburban street scene. The flat roof design with its bullnose coping creates a square slab of a building set up against the pitched roofs of the existing fabric. The modern industrial cladding also sits in conflict with a proposed rustic brick, creating a pastiche solution which never ends well as an architectural statement. This is made worse by the introduction of tokenistic brick columns and large advertising hoardings. In short, development is a missed opportunity in this current form. In summary, the planning application as proposed is overdevelopment. The site is filled with building, service yard and parking with next to no amenity space. Reducing the footprint of the building will allow the plan to breathe, to be more in keeping with the area and provide more space for parking. I have no objection to a contemporary building being located on this site and would indeed welcome the approach, particularly as this is a landmark site. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks very much indeed, Mr. Barosh, for your presentation. And we do have a resident who's in favour of the application joining us on Teams. It's Jane Clarkson. Can you hear us, Jane Clarkson?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we certainly can.
Okay.
If you'd like to make your presentation, you have 4 minutes. Okay, thanks very much.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I spoke to you at the last meeting when you agreed to defer the plans for the Champan. I speak as the secretary for the Woodville Court flats on behalf of the 10 people that own or rent them. Since the last meeting, I believe the developer has been in talks regarding the matters that were of concern. We are hoping that we are closer to a solution, being the Champan's immediate neighbours. We all feel that we need to be moving forward as we have been stuck with this monstrosity for long enough. Several flat owners have their properties on the market and are in limbo, as interested parties want to know what is happening, and rightly so. One person has decided to take it off the market and wait. As far as parking is concerned, I was talking to the man from the post office outside his premises, and we watched several people park on the yellow lines outside the chip shop, causing a hazard instead of using the car parks. He told me that they see people parking on the road all the time. This is their choice. I can verify that any Arctic entering Woodville Court with deliveries can enter front on and turn round on the premises and leave without backing into the road. I see that the co-op's delivery vehicles and cars either back in or back out onto Pope Lane, and there are residential houses across the road. I have to say the local councillor appears to be representing the objectors and not the people from Woodville Court who are in support. In fact, I received an email from Councillor Martin on the 2nd of October pointing out reasons why I should oppose the scheme, saying he would support us for something to be done on the site, but we are all happy with the proposals. I would like to reiterate what I said last time, that the developer has helped us with the security and always attended when we requested it. Councillor Martin said he hadn't. This site has been commercial for many years, so it is reasonable to expect that it should be allowed to be again. It is also a fact that all the professional consultees like Highways and Environmental Health have carried out their surveys and have no problem with the plans. Are they all wrong in their assessments? Lastly, I have read a late email that was sent to the council by an objector that mentions me, which I feel is getting personal. By the way, I was told I could not send in an email. I had to speak in spite of the fact that I cannot attend the meetings. As the secretary for Woodville Court, I am able to speak on behalf of the other owners and tenants. We bought this flat to live in when we sell our house, but renting it in the meanwhile, I take exception to people digging into my private life and where I live, making it sound like I have an ulterior motive and trying to discredit me. If the other flat owners or tenants had been made aware that an email was acceptable, they would have sent them, and so would I. Thank you for letting me have my say and putting the views of Woodville Court across to you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for your presentation, Jane Clarkson. Can I just let you know that we aren't accepting emails as representations at all?
I was told that one was submitted
an email
earlier.
may have been an email may have been submitted, but it's not being used. In this case, we don't take emails. We take either representations in person or via Teams, and that's all we've done tonight. And in defence of sorry?
So the one that I read hasn't been submitted then?
It's not being used at all, no.
Okay, that's fine, thank you.
Okay, all right. And in Councillor Martin's defence, he's just being a councillor. Okay.
That's fine, thank you.
Thank you, Jane Clarkson. Thanks for that. Okay, we do have a ward member, Councillor Keith Martin.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, committee.
I've not reset me watcher.
Okay. I've started mine.
Okay, Councillor Martin, if you'd like to make your presentation, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just from the onset, we've always supported something being done on this site, but we wanted the right thing doing first. There's been a lot of comment about highways, and I went today to measure, to give some of the measurements towards the highways. If you look at I don't know if Chris has got it up, the site plan. Do I get time off for this while we're waiting? The proposal to use a minimum of a 12 metre long, or a 12 metre long vehicle. If you measure diagonally straight across where the exit is going to be, that is 11.9 metres, but I can see it's at an angle. The issue there is the pavement is 4.6 metres wide, so that vehicle will be across that pavement with people on it. The driver will not see the offside as he turns, because he has to turn left, otherwise he'll end up going over the BT boxes. There's also a TV box as well on that swept path as well, so he won't be able to drive over that because that's a 500 kilo limit on that. The other issue is 26-ton truck will not be able to use Leyland Road, will not be able to use Causey, will not be able to come from the A6 because it's not the most direct route from an approved route. So it'll have to come from the A582, what used to be the Kingsfold Junction or Kingsfold Roundabout, and return that way. We wouldn't want to see it going down Cop Lane. Pavements there are about 0.5 metre to 3/4 metre wide. And we have issues there already just with cars. Moving on to Woodcroft Close. I measured Woodcroft Close. Woodcroft Close is 6.3 metres. The yellow lines to stop parking are 25 metres from the junction. The junction for the turning for this development is 80 metres. If a car was to park legally on the road, it would reduce that to 4.3 metres. If two cars were to park legally opposite each other, it would leave 2.3 metres, or 4.3 metres, which means we've looked into refrigerated lorries, because that's what we'll be delivering here in the main. They are a minimum of 2.55 metres wide, regardless of their length. So there is an issue with that. And if there's cars parked there, they will not get turned into that junction, which puts at jeopardy the residents who are allowed to park there, because the first house is 22.7 metres away from the junction, which means that people can park a few metres away from that outside their properties. So if there's vehicles parked there causing obstruction, they could be charged with obstructing the highway if the vehicle can't have access that never would normally have had access. There was talk about bin lorries using that road before, but the bin lorries went in a straight line. They didn't turn around and do U-turns into a corner with the back end swinging out as they're expected to. So on the whole, there's also an issue about delivery times. It's very busy. It's very busy, that place, especially at lunchtime in the mornings with kids going to school and buses and things like that. So if the committee are minded to approve this, I'd like an amendment to the delivery times, which would be 9:30 to 11:30 and 13:30 to 1500, and then any time after the schools are out, simply because of the hazard to members of the public when this lorry is delivering coming across the pavement and not seeing what pedestrians are doing. I'd like to also add that currently disabled drivers are allowed to park anywhere around that junction as long as they're not causing a direct obstruction. or line of sight issue. And I'd like to point out that also on the exit, the line of sight is from the old measurement. It's not from the proposed site, because you'd need to put a drop curb all the way along there to avoid driving over the NTL box. And I think that will be it for now. Chair, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Martin. Okay, do we have the applicant or the applicant's agent with us? Okay, if you'd like to introduce yourself and start with your presentation, you have 4 minutes, okay? If you press the speak button.
Good evening, councillors. Following deferral, I'm Hitesh Chandrana, the applicant. Following deferral last month, as told to, we liaised with the planning officers regarding the issues raised. We spoke to various retailers and their logistics department for their professional views on delivery vehicles and schedules. A 12-metre vehicle would be deemed an acceptable vehicle size. Anything smaller would make distribution commercially unviable and would result in more frequent deliveries and an increase in carbon footprint. The Co-op, the chip shop and South Ribble waste refuse vehicles are all of similar size and service this using Woodville Road. The Co-op vehicles unload closer to them houses on Woodville Road than the ones would be on delivering to this site, if you see the pictures attached, and they were taken on a Sunday. They're in the addendum. On the matter of Sunday deliveries, Logistics Department stated they tend not to use Sundays, but do require it as a backstop for failed deliveries, seasonal variations and situations such as the current driver shortage. Daily perishables would tend to be delivered on a smaller vehicle anyway. As a developer, if we did not provide enough parking that retailers require for customers, they would simply not sign to the scheme. The focus on 55 spaces is based on hourly data. People do not visit local shops for an hour, usually for under 10 minutes, and the retailers know this. So, based on 15 customer spaces, each 10-minute visit would allow for 90 vehicle spaces to visit within an hour. To be very robust in analysing this, let's class each visit as 15 minutes long. The customer parking area of 15 spaces would allow for 60 vehicle space visits, which still exceeds South Ribble's guidance of providing 55 spaces. This methodology has been used by South Ribble recently at Spa, Brown Edge Road and Co-op Watkin Lane. If further controls are required, although seldom is this a requirement at a local centre, we can place parking time restrictions to ensure the site offers the capacity required. This can be easily done through local parking management companies such as Parking Eye, who monitor the site via CCTV. We will have a provision to include this within our service lease agreements with the operators of the sites. We've made a decision to reduce the operation times of the extraction system and agreed it as a condition that it will only operate from 10 AM as opposed to 7 AM. The new extraction system has met all guidelines and will improve on the current by a noise reduction of 20%. To summarise, we're a small local company and followed guidance, worked with neighbours, consultees and councillors from day one, as disclosed. Again, you'll see that in the addendum, and always responded. We've never ignored communications as suggested. This committee applauded the application but wanted some review, so we worked with the planning department. All consultees and the planning department approved the scheme. We have since further improved the conditions to address the neighbours' concerns. The current site has been built for over 60 years and I'm told was commercial even long before that. Surely the proposal is a planning gain on the previous fully functional licensed late night premises with hot food serving and takeaway facilities. If you see the local centre plan in the addendum, the site's boundaries is surrounded by other commercial premises except Woodville Court Flats and the houses opposite on Pope Lane to the north. Them houses are sheltered from the trading activity within the trading area of the sites. The houses on Woodville Road are sheltered from the activity as there is a private car park, also commercial land between them and the proposed sites. We have agreed to condition the use of a vehicle 20% smaller in length and 30% less weight load allowance. Larger vehicles are already used in Woodville Road currently. Shopping local and often equates to quick visits and not always by car, so there is sufficient parking. If at all, there would be only one delivery on Sunday to be used as a backup plan. Use of extraction has been limited to 10 AM start. Any existing issues outside the curtilage of this site cannot be controlled by refusing this application but require policing and re-education. I had sent some pictures in, but I don't think they've been attached, where there is parking in front of the chip shop, etc., as mentioned previously.
Mr. Chandori, you need to start tying up. Okay.
Yeah. So we offer the best delivering facility in Kingsfold with a clear swept path, no reversing, and customer parking at the front of the shops where the customers want it. With approval, it will get much needed investment, creating the local jobs and better facilities needed. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your presentation, Mr. Chandarana. Okay. I am going to open up to committee. Councillor Flannery.
I'll go first because no one else wants to. Okay. I think I have responsibility to go first because I proposed deferral last time. Last time it was nearly there. What I would like to say is, for the people who turned up tonight and spoke, residents, you did well, and you took a lot of time, and I know you care, so that's good. To Councillor Martin, you bamboozled me with your technology and the information you presented, so you've obviously clearly done your own work too. And the applicants, you spoke well. You've all represented yourselves in the right way. We always say at this committee, I think colleagues will agree, we need the tools to be able to use them to support sustainable development. Lancashire County Highways, the majority of what we heard tonight is a highways issue. They've got no objection. The applicant has been back and met with the officers to address some of the issues which we raised last time. And I know it's not ideal for the residents, and I know there's issues in terms of pollution, etc., because we're all faced with that. The site's been empty since 2019. I'd rather suggest that we look at it another way. Someone wants to invest in an SME, in a business. They're not hanging around and waiting for that site to dilapidate. It takes time and it takes cost. And what members may not know is the applicant will have spent quite a considerable amount of money to get to this point. So I would like to know what other colleagues say on this, because we've always said it, residents are very, very important, but we've got to get the balance, and this is a balanced application, and the officer recommendation is for approval. So that's me for now, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Hesketh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With this particular application, I think we have three options. The first is leave it as it is, in ruin and being vandalised. The second is that we can let it hope that it will open again with a new occupant as it is, which it doesn't appear to be happening. And third one is to go along with we have an opportunity here now to go along with a more modern development, which would look much better than the existing one. It is compliant, the application is compliant with South Ribble Local Plan and also the Kingsfold Development Plan as well. So I believe that it will blend in well, the new one would blend in well with the local area, and it would also provide, well, what I would like to say that providing that the conditions on the application are adhered to and are implemented by officers and so forth, I think that this application should be approved, Mr. Chairman, and I will go along with approval with conditions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hesketh. Councillor Will Adams.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with what Councillor Flannery said wholeheartedly and won't repeat it, but I just have issues. I had issues first time around with the swept path analysis from Lancashire County Council, and I've got it probably even more so now. As someone who uses the Kingsfold Centre regularly, a car was actually damaged of mine on Woodville Road from oncoming traffic. There's cars parked on both sides of the road, and in that swept path analysis, that's not the case. That's not the worst case scenario from LCC. And I've just got major concerns at the fact of large articulated lorries going down a residential street with cars parked either side, and then already in an area which is already very busy and which is very highly populated. I think the application is a good thing, and I want to state that to see this type of application in this area is needed. It's definitely needed. But I just quite large reservations about the safety aspect first and foremost, and the negative impacts on residents, which I think this will bring. I think Councillor Martin outlined it pretty clearly this evening as well. But we've only got the tools available to us that we have. The Lancashire County Council have unfortunately not supported us here sufficiently in my eyes, because I know this area. I've been brought up around this area and I've been going there for 30 years. And I know the impact that this will have on the area. And I'm just very disappointed that the fact that we've not been given enough power from LCC to enable us as a committee to come to a decision tonight, which is of benefit to the residents. I'm disappointed in that. I'll probably wait to see what others on the committee say before we come to it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just bring Chris in for some clarity, and then we'll have Councillor Trafford and then Councillor Mrs Green and then Councillor Sharples in that order.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to highlight that the swept path analysis that was shown tonight is the same one that was shown last time round. So that was for an articulated lorry, 14.9 metres. County Highways raised no issues with that. What the applicant now has agreed to do is to reduce the size of that lorry. So that swept path analysis will be different now. What they've agreed to in condition 27 is a rigid lorry, which isn't articulated, so it doesn't have the truck fixed to it. It's just one rigid lorry, which is 2.9 metres shorter than the vehicle that's shown on that swept path analysis that's been shown tonight. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Is that all right for you, Councillor Adams? Yes? Good. Councillor Trafford?
Thank you, Chair. This, for members of the public, is my first time speaking at a planning meeting, so what a way to start doing it. I think something that's missing here is actually what we need to understand about LCC highways, and that's that very often the policies and how they implement parking is done in retrospect. So there's reported of 4 incidents in the area, and they've said it doesn't appear that this application would worsen the plans there. But I know from your own experience as a councillor where there are enormous public concerns, ones that I would consider reasonable about parking issues and the safety of residents in the area, where there are no reported incidents, because the parking policies are implemented based on the amount of reported incidents, not reported concerns. So they'll wait until after there's been a crash in order to decide whether they're going to change the parking policy there. So I think that there's an opportunity here to be a bit more proactive. Within the report as well, there's in arguments for and against, there's reference to antisocial behaviour issues. I'm not really gonna worry too much about that on the reason that I'm yet to see a study of antisocial behaviour that says the lack of regenerating restaurants is the reason that has caused the antisocial behaviour. Antisocial behaviour, we have to get to the core of the problem there. I'm not sure that this application itself is going to deal with that issue. I'd like some clarity on a few things as well. A lot of the arguments that were made very well, by the way, by residents on this made reference to CCTV footage. Is there a reason we haven't seen that? Because I think that would have been helpful. There's also some confusion as well that was raised about written objections. In the addendum that we received, page 74, we have a written we have a written objection. So I'd like to know why that one's allowed in it, and if others are allowed, what the rules are on that. We've heard from Councillor Martin, who again is we've heard his homework on that. I think was really helpful, specifically about if drivers are required to go onto the pavement. I think that we have some safety issues there with that they need to consider. There was reference as well about other shops using similar size lorries, and I think in this, for us to understand that argument, I think I'd need to know specifically what size, because similar can be quite subjective in what one would consider similar and what others wouldn't. Parking restrictions and implementation about using parking eye, something that is that included in the conditions? Is that something that have been writing? I'd like to know sort of what that would include. And then as well, the reference made to the current monstrosity, to quote, which I have enormous sympathy with, obviously. But what my concern is that I'm not sure if I would have to be convinced that we're not sacrificing public safety in order to create a visual improvement. I'm not sure that that's a risk worth taking. I'm not sure that that's a balanced approach to this. So I've raised some issues. If I could have some clarity on a few things, that'd be brilliant. And like Councillor Adams, I'm open to sort of have my mind changed and listen to what's been said. So thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Trafford. Welcome to planning. Letters of objection are letters of objection. When people turn up to object, that is a different matter. You'll see many times we will have 25 representations in writing in objection, and you might have 55 wanting approval. And when it comes to the night, 5 objectors will turn up and nobody will turn up in approval. Chris, do we have anything on the parking eye issue?
Yeah, I've jotted down a few of the issues. Apologies if I've missed any, just pull me up. On the point of CCTV footage, I don't think we have access to that. But we do undertake site visits, and in this application, particularly County Highways, we're very keen to stress that they've made numerous visits to the site. They've provided 3 formal responses to the application and the amended plans, and additional technical objections submitted by the residents. And there's also been a couple of other informal responses where they've said that their position's not changed. So I just wanted to make sure, I think this was highlighted the previous committee, which I appreciate you weren't on, but County Highways, it wasn't just initial reaction. We've had one look, that's fine. They have made numerous visits to the sites. On the point of written objections, I think there's been a bit of confusion. We do accept late representations. Now that is somebody that is submitting a written statement, either for or against, or providing comments, and that goes, it would normally be summarised within the officer report, but obviously with the agenda being published, it's too late to do that. So that is a written submission that somebody has provided for you as members, and for everyone else, all of the interested parties to read. I think the confusion was that the person that spoke in support of the application just before, they were referring to them not being able to attend the committee tonight and wanting their representation to be read out as if they were sat in the chair across from us. Third point was on the shops, other retail shops, convenience shops having lorries deliveries of similar size. Whilst it's difficult, like you said, to make comparison, but I think the key point is that the other convenience shops nearby, such as the Co-op, they do not have restrictions on the size of vehicles. So whereas a delivery might come in a certain size vehicle, it could come in a larger vehicle. There's nothing to prevent them from doing that. On the point of the parking eye, the applicant has said that once they've identified the end users, they'd be willing to enter into discussion about how best to manage the car park. From the applicant's perspective, to not have that car park managed well, to have a full car park would not be in their benefit, because that person would just head down the road to Tesco and to do their shopping there. So it's in the applicant's own benefit to make sure that that car park has good availability, and if it's done by restrictions on time, 30 minutes, 15 minutes, what have you, then it's in the applicant's own benefit to do that, as well as in the public's benefit for having those spaces available. I think I've covered everything. Is there anything I missed? No, thank you.
Just about the CCTV, because it says that we don't have access to that, but if the residents have access to it and they've submitted it, is there a reason why that hasn't been included? Because I think I'd like to see that. I'm suspecting that it's not CGI, and I'm suspecting that it's an accurate CCTV footage, and I think that's something that I'd have liked to have seen. And is there a reason why that hasn't been included if residents have access to it, but for some reason we don't?
I'm not. I mean, I suppose the question is, do the residents have access to it, and how?
Yeah, just bear with me, Mr. Volonovich. Right, Chris, have you seen CCTV?
I've seen no CCTV.
No, so we haven't seen it. Okay? All right, Councillor Trafford?
No, because I'm not asking if we've seen it. I'm being asked if we've been sent it.
We haven't been sent any. We haven't been sent.
Councillor Mary Green.
Yeah, Chair, thank you. It's just a quick question, really. One of the previous residents said that they were concerned that they lived opposite this potential site, and that they're going to have the lights and everything right across from their property. Is there any way we could strengthen the condition, one of the conditions, to say that, say, any lighting from this property goes off or it's dimmed when the property closes, so that people aren't bothered with it during the night if it's opposite the bedrooms or whatever? That was all it was. Thank you.
Chris, would you like to come in that one?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I actually noted that down when the residents were speaking. One of the residents did make reference to an illuminated sign, the size 4 metres. Advertisement consent is not part of this application, so should planning permission be granted, should the store wish to erect signage, illuminated or not, that would be subject to a separate planning application. So any signage which may well be shown illuminated on the plans, that would only be for indicative purposes of what they might want to do in the future. A separate application for advertisement consent is required.
Okay, Councillor Sharples, then Councillor Smith, then Councillor Bretherton, then Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's an interesting one, this. I feel like I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place with this one. And it's great. Thank you very much for all those that have come and spoken to us, because it does help. But I'm really worried about a couple of things. I appreciate that, you know, there's talk about investment in the area. I accept that. Improving the look of the thing because it's run down and horrible as it stands. I accept that. But no matter which way I look at it, I've got some reservations. I've got reservations about parking. I've got reservation about the sweat path analysis, the HGVs, you know, if there's cars parked in the way and all that kind of stuff. And I've also got reservations about what that area is going to look like in the future as well, when traffic will probably increase or possibly increase. And I've got reservations about air pollution as well in that area. It really is a struggle. I'm sort of tempted to sit under the desk and say nothing, but I have got reservations, and I'm really not minded to approve it at all, really. I'm just being honest. I just really do struggle with this. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Sharples. Chris, would you like to come in?
Yes, it's just to highlight to the committee, should the committee wish to refuse the application on the grounds of parking, the sweat path analysis, highway matters, or air pollution, we would not have the support of the experts that we've consulted on the matters, the county highways and environmental health, at any subsequent appeal. And in fact, their submissions would be used as ammunition against us. Just the committee are aware of that.
Yeah, LCC Highway strike again. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair.
I think just for completeness, the camera that was put there many years ago was not for traffic monitoring or traffic control. It was to monitor via the police station for the antisocial behaviour that went on in the area. I know it was pretty bad at the time because I was chairman of planning at one stage that closed the place down. It really was bad. I've seen what's come forward today, and I really don't think I've sort of changed my mind from the last application. And we've read the detail of this. There's one or two amendments that will help the residents. I still have problems with the Sunday delivery, and I could take it either way. I could either vote for it or against that with regard to Sunday delivery. And I see what it says in there that the Co-op and Tesco have Sunday deliveries. Well, the business of Tesco is a completely different animal. It's within a huge area. They have a way in and a way out. They have a delivery section. So I don't think we could take that into account. The area itself, I mean, I know it very well. It's busy. There's absolutely no doubt about it. It is a busy corner. There's traffic coming all ways at that corner. And the buses that do park outside there, I've seen those. I've had difficulty negotiating those myself. But nevertheless, we have that quite a lot all over the borough, to be quite honest. It's not the only place that has those sort of difficulties. I think some negotiations have gone away with county highways, and I'm sort of, I won't say comforted a little, but it seems that county highways have made various visits and not just sort of brushed it off. They have looked at it in detail. So it gives us a certain amount of, I won't say comfort, but to know that they've actually looked at it properly. I will second the proposal for approval because I think it's better for the area than it is now. It could open up as a public house again any time now, and it could look, opening and closing hours could be a lot longer than these, to be quite honest, and it could open 7 days a week, 24 hours a day with licensing laws. So I think from my point of view, I think this investment into the area, I think it'll improve the area no end. It'll bring jobs to the area. It'll keep people shopping in the community as well, I think, which is important, and keep business within the community. So sort of the cash that is generated locally and improves the area itself. So I think that's it for me, Chair. If anybody wants to make any other improvements to it, I could probably go along with that as well. But at the moment, I'm quite happy with it. And I do realise the lighting thing will come back, presumably as and when it needs to come back, providing an application does come in. But I will second approval, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Smith. Councillor Bretherton. Welcome to planning.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've listened to the various comments. There's a few issues that I'd like to raise. In the update sheet, page 74, the resident or the person that wrote this letter, Jane Mills, she's mentioned unwanted light pollution, which is, and she suggests that might be coming from the rear of the premises, not necessarily the advertising light at the front. And I'm just wondering if we could get some clarity on whether that lighting will be on 24 hours a day or in the evenings, where it might affect the residents locally, or will it be security lighting that comes on and off, or could it be a condition where it doesn't come on at certain hours and doesn't cause light pollution? That's the first point. The second point, the developer kindly offered to write into the lease agreements with the tenants that will be moving into these premises a condition with regards to parking restrictions, and he did mention, I think he mentioned parking eye or CCTV. From his suggestion, it would appear that isn't a condition at the moment, but the developer is willing to include that in the lease agreements. Could we make it more formal and insist that those kind of restrictions put in the lease agreements. So we do monitor the cars coming in and out, and maybe it stops people from parking there for longer than they need to. I think that could be something that would be highly beneficial to consider. I've listened to residents' comments and about the parking issues, etc. But unfortunately, as our planning officer has confirmed, well, basically, we haven't got a leg to stand on as a council. The highways have said that there isn't an issue, and if it went to appeal, the LCC would, the Highways Department would come back at us, and we'd probably lose it. So on that point, I don't think there's a lot we can do. But it would be interesting to hear from the legal point of view the position about the lighting and putting the developer's suggestion of a clause in the lease agreements. Thank you.
Do you want a legal position or a planning position on the lighting? A planning position. Chris?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've just checked the conditions. There's no recommended condition about external lighting. You normally wouldn't need planning permission to put on lighting for security purposes or for health and safety reasons, for manoeuvring around when it's dark. If the committee minded to do so, we can impose an additional condition requiring the details of all external lighting be agreed with the council prior to first use. Similarly, appreciate that the applicant had said that they would monitor the car parking situation and have a look at it, as and when. If the committee were minded to do so, there could be a condition imposed requiring the agreement of a car park management strategy prior to the first use. So that would obviously be after the user has been identified, but before the store opens. A document could be submitted where we start to look at the issues of how the car parks can be made readily available. So that could be an additional condition that could be imposed as well. Thank you.
I think anything to do with the applicant and leasees wouldn't be a planning consideration at all, would it?
No. I mean, we wouldn't get involved in the lease. We wouldn't be able to enforce the lease, but it could be a car park management strategy could be a condition that is imposed.
Okay, thanks for that. Are you happy with that, Councillor Bretherton?
Yes, I'd like to propose that we suggest a condition of a parking strategy, management strategy. I'd like to propose that as an extra condition.
You may. I must say I'm upset it's parking guy personally, but never mind. Councillor Watson, you may come in.
Thank you, Chair. With relation to highways and so on, obviously we've mentioned that this is probably abnormal in the amount of effort they actually have put into this, in the number of visits and so on. Sorry, am I not quite being picked up? Is that better? Highways have put an almost abnormal amount of effort into this particular application, in that they have had the multiple visits and references have gone back and forward. Obviously, it's quite reasonable to, for example, in this council, to question officers and so on as to whether we believe they're right or wrong and so on. But this is a case where the officers at Lancashire County Council have obviously come back through this with highways. They've got the experience, they've got the knowledge and so on. And I think they're turning my volume up. So they've had opportunity. They've analysed it a number of times. They've analysed it based on a larger vehicle than is being proposed to be used. So obviously the sweep path analysis has been relatively thorough in this case and has been done by professionals. It's hard to really question that with obviously ourselves looking at it and saying, well, we don't quite think it's right, especially when a smaller vehicle is being used. So I'm not really as concerned about that, especially as there are obviously vehicles in that area frequently using it that are larger than these vehicles being proposed, and other people have access to, such as the co-op and so on, have access to the potential for use of larger vehicles. And I have seen larger vehicles around there, not necessarily going around that particular path, but vehicles do use that area. So The other thing was, obviously, we have some residents that spoke that believe it'll be a positive impact on the area as well as those negative, and we need to consider that as well. Obviously, there is antisocial behaviour we know around there. A derelict building is not going to help that, and an improved site and so on, and the relevant security cameras and so on that will appear around that will only benefit the local area in that sense. As with the parking spaces, that's been mentioned a number of times, where we have a recommendation about the number of parking spaces available. But when I read the conditions and so on, I see a maximum number of spaces as 50, not a minimum number of spaces. So I don't quite see, and I'd like to just double check with that it's not, I'm not misreading that basically, because as far as I can tell, I don't know what the minimum is, but certainly that 50 number is a maximum. Am I correct in that?
I would have thought the minimum was 0, but
yeah, that's what I would have thought,
I'll let Chris come in with the maximum.
Yeah, the way County Highways will work in assessing the car parking is they'll start off at, that is the maximum, that is what would be required in the most unsustainable of location. They would then go through a process in assessing the application of essentially deducting stuff off, where if it's in a highly sustainable location, it can come down a bit. If there's other car parks nearby, it can come down a bit more. So that's what they've done, and they've obviously assessed it based on the numbers proposed and feel that it is acceptable.
Okay, so again, that figure of 50 obviously is a maximum. It's not actually something that's being recommended as having to happen, is it? It's so I'm not sure that it's been quite represented that way, or necessarily understood that way, unfortunately. So again, I'm relatively happy with this application, to be honest with you. I believe the developer has made quite considerable effort to mitigate as much as possible, probably in excess of what he really needs to do. And I'd be very concerned that we wouldn't really have much chance of defending this if we didn't approve it. So I'd be worried about the cost of the council if we did reject it, to be honest with you. So, as I say, I'm not as concerned that LCC of highways are as much to haven't made the effort that they have done on some others, where we can certainly viably say that they've not really made that the effort. I think this isn't the case in this instance. That's all I really want to say. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Watson. Right, I have Councillor Flannery, Councillor Adams, and Councillor Hancock wishing to speak. I would then like to bring this debate to a draw. Okay, Councillor Flannery.
Thanks for letting us back in, Chair. What our residents are seeing tonight is the deliberations. This is just one application. This happens on all our applications. This is not a subjective decision. Whether we like it or not, we're guided by the National Plan and Policy Framework. So here's the reality checklist. Will this development regenerate the area? Yes. Will it cause disruption? Yes. Have highways objected? No. Have our officers recommended? Yes. Will we lose an appeal? Probably yes. Therefore, that's the position we find ourselves in before we go to this vote. But can I just suggest, Chair, that we adopt Councillor Martin's recommendation to give the residents some comfort, that we limit the times, was it, Councillor Martin, in terms of the delivery, to give them at least something, because as you can see, our hands are a bit tied on this one. Cheers.
Yeah, we'd have to get the applicant to agree to that, but Councillor Adams?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just quickly, said it a few times on this committee, I feel like I'm backed into a corner, which I feel as though that we shouldn't really be put in. Again, you know, Councillor Flannery says it, that even if we rejected this evening, the likelihood is that it'd be overturned at appeal. And for me, that's just incredibly frustrating, because I do know the impact that it's going to have on the community. I think it now requires us to be pragmatic about it, to actually put something in there which tries to maximise the protections to the community and to the residents. As I say, I don't like it at all. There's far too many things wrong with it, but there's not much we can do about it, and that's frustrating, and it's wrong. So I would agree with Councillor Flannery in terms of wanting to propose that extra condition on the deliveries, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Hancock.
Thank you, Chair. This is a most difficult one to decide, but I'm sure the residents would like to see a change on this particular site. One of the problems that I've got is I cannot understand why after 20 years of closure, this particular exit is now going to be reopened. And it looks as though, perhaps Chris could tell us, if anything has been done to make this exit no longer a danger to the safety of the public.
Chris, would you like to come in on this one?
There are no improvement works proposed to that access point. That's going to be reopened, but it has been assessed by County Highways for the purposes of this application for servicing. So this isn't part of the customer car park. That's going to egress onto it. So presumably the numbers of using it in any day in comparison to the customer car park, it would be less. Either way, County Highways have assessed it and they've raised no objections from a highway safety perspective.
Thank you.
All right, Councillor Hancock, are you happy with that?
Yes, I'm happy with that. But I think whatever goes up there, there's going to be the same traffic problems that they've got now. So looking at it all round and listening to what's been said, I come to the conclusion that I very reluctantly would go for approval.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Hancock. I agree with everything Councillor Flannery said. Stuck between a rock and a hard place sometimes. I'm gonna, if I may, could I ask the applicant if we put those conditions on this application about the delivery times, would you be happy with that? Councillor Martin, if you just repeat the times, I would like the applicant to listen to those times and whether he'd be happy with them or not.
We would like to see this application get approved today, and I'm keen to agree to that. But I must also note that, you know, we can't always control haulage companies and the time they can get in. If that vehicle was to come, would you want it loitering on the local highway? Or would you rather it come in on a simple swept path? It's a shorter vehicle. We can hold it back in the bay for safety, but it is going through a simple swept path. And as previously mentioned, there's not a requirement for a banksman, but if required, we can make him safely exit that egress point. So whilst I'm not against the proposal of Councillor Flannery, we are very, very keen to work. Does it make logical sense to block it off? And would you want to see HGVs loitering around? I mean, please do pass comment on that.
Oh, yeah, okay. Councillor Martin, are you happy with that or not?
I'd like limitations on lunchtime.
Yeah, but do you understand what I'm saying in terms of counter proposal, in terms of if a vehicle was in the area, where would you want it to potentially loiter. Yes, they can target these times. We will work with retailers. We will aim to impose that, but to impose it as a condition, is it sensible?
It's the safety of people in that place.
Yeah, okay, right, we've drawn to a close now. Could you put that condition on, oh, hold on, I'll just bring Stephen in because Stephen's looking rather perplexed.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. Can you just explain the conditions again, Councillor Moore? I'm not understanding because you mentioned 9:30, 11:30 and 1:30. So you're allowed to deliver between 9:30 and 11:30, but not before 9:30?
Peak times. Busy.
Right.
And obviously people using the existing businesses.
Yeah. So you can deliver between 9:30 and 11:30, and then you mentioned 13:30. So you can't deliver between 11:30 and 13:30, but you can thereafter. Till what time though?
Well, until 800, until it's sort of off the street. Just to avoid when pavement at that particular because that's very busy with people who may not be as street users.
Right, can I just, in my experience, I personally do not think that would be workable, but that is my experience.
It presents a very short time frame within the day to deliver, to be honest. Yeah.
Right, you've got 1 minute and that. Go on.
It does make sense, yes. You've got to be sensible. It was more problem.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what you can do. You can put it in the conditions. How it will be workable is quite beyond me. Go on, Chris, you can come in.
I mean, I am aware that Tesco do have restrictions on their delivery, where their restriction, it's just specifically homed to the hour where the children go into the school and the hour when they come out, and that leaves a much greater, so that bit around the middle of the day, which isn't necessarily as busy, and you don't have those vulnerable users, the children going to from school, and that would, to me, would be much more workable, and it would also tie in with Tesco around down the road. So you're looking at the hour of, 8 till 9, and then 3 till 4 is out, and then the rest of the day is in.
Yeah, well, I think that's much more workable. And just this one last time, Councillor Flannery.
Keith, can you turn this? It's all right, it's done. Yeah, look, it's a bit of give and take, and I just think Councillor Martin's suggestion was the right suggestion. I think Chris's its other suggestion is more workable, so it's more consistent, and it's consistent with the other businesses, and that's what we want to be fair. So that's okay by me. Yeah, but add it in, make sure.
Right, okay, well, that's the end. Do we have any other proposals other than approval? So we want the car parking management strategy.
That's not been seconded yet.
Can we have I got a seconder for the car parking strategy? Okay, so the proposer and seconder will go with car parking strategy. Right, so we don't have any other proposals? Nope. Okay, so if we can all go to the vote, please. Okay, Jodie, if you can read out the result of the vote, please.
Members have resolved to approve the application for the Champagne Indian restaurant, and that approval is subject to the conditions in the report, and 2 further conditions, one of which is that the applicant submit to the local planning authority and to be agreed by the local planning authority a car park management strategy, and the other condition is that delivery times be restricted between the hours of 8 and 9 and 3 and 4 or 1500 and 1600.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Jodie. All right, so moving on to item number 7 this evening, which is the Oaklands Convent, Moss Lane, Leyland. If you have just come for item number 6, if you'd like to leave, you can do. Thanks for your attendance. Okay, item number 7 this evening, Oaklands Convent, Moss Lane, Leyland, and Janice will present this application.
Thank you, Chair. So this application relates to the Oaklands Convent on Moss Lane in Leyland, which is a former convent building with deep front gardens, and it's located in a residential area. To the north is St Catherine's School, to the east is the M6 motorway, which was built on the former convent grounds, and facing the access are detached residential properties. So this just shows the local plan allocation. So the building itself is allocated under policy B1 with the remainder under G7, which is green infrastructure. So you can see this a belt of TPO trees. Sorry, the pointer's not working. A belt of TPO trees to the west and along the frontage. These are to be retained. Just to note, there was attempts to list the building in 2015, but Historic England didn't wish to pursue that. So access to the site is from Moss Lane. School entrance and Moss Lane is on the left-hand slide picture, and the M6 with its subway to Moss Lane are on the right. And these are just some photographs of the site. Now, planning permission was granted in both 2016 and 2017 for an extension of the existing building for 35 and 46 bed care homes respectively. The convent building has since been left to deteriorate and to such a level that its use is not now viable. And antisocial behaviour as a result of this neglect is now of concern. So the application proposes the demolition of the existing building, plus the recently constructed foundations, and the erection of a 66-bed care home with associated works and landscaping. The proposal is considered to be similar to other completed schemes in the borough in terms of design. So this just shows the floor plans. There's 3 floors with 66 rooms. The ground floor has 14 ensuite bedrooms with ancillary and reception space, coffee shop, hairdressers, communal dining and lounge areas. And levels 2 and 3 would accommodate 26 ensuite bedrooms, quiet lounges, dining and communal space. Just one of the bedrooms faces towards the M6. So this slide just shows the proposed layout. The care homes on the same footprint as the approved scheme. Car parking is to the front. The proposal includes landscaping to the front gardens and landscaping between the building and the school. And as I mentioned earlier, protected trees will be retained. So this is a view of the site from the school access. And then finally, this is a view of the site from the school at the rear. The proposal will be 8 metres from the common boundary and 15 metres from the school building itself, and this is as per previous approval. There's been 3 letters of objection. These are noted in the report, but primarily relate to issues unrelated to this proposal. No objections from statutory consultees, and subject to conditions, the application is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Janice, thanks for your presentation. I don't have anyone wishing to object to the application. I don't have anybody wishing to speak in favour of it. I don't have the ward members present wanting to speak either for or against it. Do we have the applicant or do we have the agent, David Morse?
Yes, Chair.
If you'd like to present, you've got a maximum of 4 minutes. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Chair and members. My name is Dave Morse of Baltic PDC, and it's my pleasure to represent the applicants in support of redevelopment of Oaklands Convent on Moss Lane. You have the application package and a detailed officer's report in front of you, which outlines how, with the imposition of draft conditions, the proposed development is wholly acceptable in development management terms and is in accordance with the relevant parts of the development plan. The principle of development has already been established through previous permissions, and this highlights the site's highly accessible location and ability to support accommodation of this nature in land use terms. The applicants have worked closely with officers to ensure that the proposed development occupies and makes effective use of the previously developed parts of the site, thereby preserving the green infrastructure land to the middle and southern parts of the site. In practical terms, the latest proposals for the site will provide an exceptional living environment for future residents across 66 bedrooms with extensive ancillary space, including dining areas, a coffee shop and a hairdresser. The internal layouts are the result of extensive collaboration between the architects and the applicant's clinical and operational teams. The proposed accommodation will be housed in an attractively designed building which combines traditional form with modern materials. Externally, the development will maximise the extensive site with the formation of a series of superbly landscaped formal amenity spaces leading to the informal grassed areas to the south of the site. The applicants have worked closely with officers and their consultees on ensuring that development sits appropriately in the site, and available opportunities have been taken to preserve and improve the site's biodiversity. The result of this hard work is the delivery of a modern care home sat within a mature landscape. Through appropriate conditions, it has been demonstrated that the habitat and landscape provisions of the site can be maintained and, in some instances, improved. In addition, a sustainable surface water drainage system will further reduce impacts on the site and its surroundings from a flood risk perspective. In recognition of the quality of the proposals, the application has attracted no objections from statutory consultees, subject to appropriate conditions. We note there are 3 neighbour objections, albeit with respect, which suggest that these are concerned with matters separate to this application. Officers deal with the development plan considerations in comprehensive detail in their report to committee. As such, we'd like to just highlight a couple of other material considerations of weight in favour of this application. Firstly, the population profile within the borough shows that South Ribble has the highest proportion of older age groups in the region, across the 60 to 74-year-olds and the over 75s. Furthermore, health projections for the borough show a substantial increase in both dementia and mobility-related health issues, with an increase of 87 and 68% respectively. This proposed care home will directly contribute to tackling these issues, with internal layouts designed specifically for both residential dementia care and residential care for the elderly. We're pleased to report that the applicants are in advanced discussions with a regional care provider who is looking to operate the site as a residential dementia home. Planning permission will therefore facilitate the delivery of the service, breaking the cycle of vacancy for the site and delivering much needed bed spaces for this part of the borough. The delivery and operation of this facility will also represent a substantial employment generator during both the construction and operational stages of the development. Once operational, it is envisaged that the home will require approximately 55 positions, with a mix of both full and part-time, ranging from clinicians to estate management and maintenance. The development will also provide a huge boost to the local supply chain. Both the demonstrable need of accommodation of this nature and the employment opportunities it will bring are material considerations of significant weight. To summarise, your officers have provided a detailed report setting out the reasons why the development is acceptable in planning terms. Additionally, there are numerous material considerations that weigh in favour of this application. We would therefore respectfully ask that you follow your officer's recommendation and approve this application. Many thanks for your time.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Morris. Thanks for your presentation. I will open up to committee and Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Chair. This is, I think, a pretty straightforward one, actually, compared to certainly the last one that we had, certainly for me anyway. I think this, I agree with the agent who has just spoken. This is something that we definitely do need in South Ribble, and we do need more of them as well. And you know, I think with the investment that it will bring into the area, you know, for the community, I think is also of benefit. The only downside I would say is that I quite like the existing buildings and would have liked for them to have been part of this, and I understand why, due to probably the cost of that, but I think it is a shame to lose some of that architecture that's been there for so many years. But that's probably the only downside, Chair, and I think this is a good application. It's something that's definitely needed, and I think it's something that we as a planning committee should definitely support, so I definitely will be doing that. Thank you, Chair.
So you're proposing approval?
Yes, I will do, Chair.
Councillor Mrs. Green.
Thank you, Chair. It's with heavy heart that I'm looking at this application this evening. I just feel so sad that as a borough we couldn't have previously, years ago, maintained this building slightly better than what we have. We've let it run down, and now it's got to a point where it's past any sort of rebuilding or anything. I was interested to see that the developer originally wanted to use it, and I thought that it perhaps could have been kept, the shell of it, and turned into a care home, but keeping the previous style and the previous building. I'm sad now that it's been destroyed. It's an iconic building. It's a building that you can even see from the motorway. And I am very sad. I'm sad about the trees as well, because I notice on page 33, paragraph 2.3, there's only one tree with TPO, one oak tree there. The rest seems to have been removed. There were multiple oak trees, all with TPOs on. I know that, hence the name Oaklands. It was private grounds with its own trees. It was a wonderful spot and a wonderful position. What a shame. It is a shame, and I feel sad about it, but if it's gone past repair, there's not a lot we can do. And we've once yet again give way to a part of our history for a modern building, which, as far as I'm concerned, isn't any comparison with the original. But here we are. That's it. Thank you.
Councillor Flannery.
I'd like to second the proposal for approval from Councillor Adams. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Flannery. Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chair. Again, it's a beautiful old building, and it's a shame to see it going. But it's clearly a kind of facility we need in South Ribble. The council's own plans. This is really supplements that, doesn't it? It's in addition. It will help. I think it's a good application, and yeah, I'm more than happy to see it go ahead. I'm quite pleased to see something happening with the site.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Watson. Yeah, I get all the sentiments. I mean, when I was a child, I knew I was coming home from Morecambe when I saw the convent. But it's not a listed building. It's been left in dire need, and it needs demolishing, and that isn't what we're here about. Janice, do you want to come in with any points? No. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've no reservations whatsoever, to be quite honest. I think it's a good application. It's something the borough needs again. It's something all communities need, to be quite honest. So absolutely no reservations at all. I'll be supporting it. Thank you.
Councillor Trafford.
Thanks. I come at this with a bit of enthusiasm, really. Well, sorry, what I do. Firstly, as someone who's just graduated with a degree in history, so I see the historical value in the current building, but then also someone who works in care. History is about human stories and human tales and how we speak to each other. And I don't necessarily think that whilst the building itself is important and it's visually important, but it's not as important as a care facility and the amazing work that can go on in there and the history of the people that will be able to speak there and contribute. So yes, it is a loss losing this sort of historic building, but I think we gain far more from that, and I'll be supporting this. So thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Trafford. Councillor Hesketh.
Thank you, Chair. I'll go along with what a lot of the comments that have been said this evening, but it's had two applications previously and had permission for smaller units, of course. This is a larger one. But there is ample room on the site for a larger type of unit, and South Ribble is in need of this type of thing anyway, so I go along with it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Hesketh. Is anyone in any other proposals apart from approval? So I've had approval moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Flannery. If there is no more other proposals, can we go to the vote, please? Jodie?
Members have unanimously approved the application in respect of Oaklands Convent on Moss Lane, and that's approved subject to the conditions in the report.
Right, thanks very much for that, Jodie. Item number 8, land opposite the Old Hobbin, Bamber Bridge. Myself, Councillor Trafford, Councillor Bretherton and Councillor Lomax have to leave the meeting at this point. As voted for earlier, you're not having the chair forever. Councillor Flannery.
That's it, okay. See you later. Where's my script, Jodie? Is it? Okay, evening everyone. I'm making my debut here tonight, standing in for the one and only Caleb. He can never be replaced, I can assure you of that. So yeah, we're looking at application, full application 00841, and it's the regeneration of the green space, including erection of a steel sculpture to commemorate the Battle of Bamber Bridge. Aye, brilliant. So Chris, I think it's over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The application relates to a landscaped area on the southern periphery of Bamber Bridge within the Church Road Conservation Area. 2 existing pathways dissect the site. The site includes a number of trees, all of which are to be retained. The proposal is for the regeneration of the area of green space, together with the erection of a steel sculpture to commemorate the Battle of Bamber Bridge. A new pathway is proposed to connect the 2 existing dissecting pathways in a crescent shape. The sculpture would be made of stainless, polished and galvanised steel, measuring 2.4 metres by 1.3 metres and fixed to concrete pads. There are no objections from any statutory consultees, and the application is recommended for approval subject to the imposition of conditions. And that's all. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that, Chris. We have 2 registered speakers tonight. We've got John Rainford and Paula Robinson in support. So, John, would you like to come up first, please? Okay, same rules apply, please, John. 4 minutes, away you go.
Hi, so my name's John Rainford. I live in Bamber Bridge for probably over 40 years. I live near the Hobbin. I live on Westview. Overall, I absolutely support this proposal. I think it's an excellent idea and it's a great way to commemorate the Battle of Bamber Bridge. I'm just concerned with some of the materials that are being proposed and some of the layout. So foremost, I think it was mentioned, this is a conservation area. So I think the materials should add to that, not detract from it. And I've had a look at the site and I do have a little bit of experience of this. I install thousands of electric car charging points in different areas, in conservation areas. So I kind of do know a little bit about this. So when I did an assessment of the site, and I actually provided some information to Sam Jones during the consultation process that don't seem to have been fed through to this process, I did an assessment of the fact that most of the visibility of this site will be from people driving. So they will be in the driving position, and the memorial will actually not be visible to most people apart from for a fleeting glance over your left and right shoulder as you pass it. So I would propose that you look again at turning it from a convex shape or a concave shape to a concave shape so people have more visibility to as you pass. I noticed on the site as well there's a sign for Station Road and Church Road that will actually block the visibility. I don't believe your CAD drawing is correct, so it will be obscured a good chunk of the time. I think the materials chosen aren't appropriate for the site. I think it's more akin to something you would see at the entrance of a retail park. Having worked with this kind of signage illuminated at night, it could actually be distracting to drivers. The only vantage point that it would be fully visible most of the time for most of the people driving would be if you come up Havelock Road, which is a very small number of people. The other material that I'm quite concerned about is you're looking at using tarmac for the path or a bonded resin. I don't think that's appropriate. The stone, there's York stone already there, and it would make sense to complement the materials that are there. Let me have a quick look. I agree with all the planting and, you know, all the trees and everything else that's on there. A little bit confused by the imagery that's been chosen for the site. I've lived in Bamber Bridge a long time. That skyline, I struggle to recognise. The two flags intertwined makes me look like it's a commercial venture. And, you know, I think there's some of the symbol on there. I think there's some more thought should be given into that. And I did speak to Dr. Alan Rice, who was the expert you consulted as part of this, and he does concur with me on the aesthetics of this, that they need to be looked at again. And I spoke to, I think it's also Clinton Smith as well, and he kind of agreed that, you know, it should probably, it's a great project. I wholly support it, but the choice of materials, the design, the layout need to be looked at again.
Okay, thanks very much for that, John. And that's Paula too, isn't it? The sentiments the same. Okay, well, thanks for your contribution and thanks for coming tonight. Cheers. Okay, so there's no other registered speakers, no ward members are speaking, and the applicant and agents are also not speaking. So no, I'm going to now bring the application into committee. So could you please indicate if you want to speak, and I'll bring you in accordingly. Thank you. Okay, we've got Councillor Adams and Councillor Smith this side. Councillor Sharples, Councillor Watson. Okay, where we go, Will.
Thank you, Chair, and welcome to the Chair. Great to see you. Yes, I mean, again, this is very straightforward for me. Not enough people know about the Battle of Bamber Bridge and what a great historic story it is, and it's definitely something that we should celebrate. I do take John's comments and do think that potentially I'm not sure if that's for this committee to do, to look at the materials or anything else of the site, but I do think that needs to be taken into consideration. For me, this should be passed and something that we should support, because it is a quite historic moment of our history here in South Ribble that we should celebrate. And we should also teach that to the future generations of residents as well. So I'm not sure, I'd want officer assistance in terms of John's comments and what you think of those comments, and if it would be plausible for us as a planning committee to put anything on that. But I would wholeheartedly support it and propose approval, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Will. What I'll do, before I go back to Chris, I'll just get people's comments because I think they're going to be fairly consistent with the points which John's raised. So, Councillor Phil Smith, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The resident John spoke there, obviously, with regard to materials. I mean, this is a full application, so if we vote it through, it will happen like that. There'll be no variation on that. So for me, I don't think I'm very happy with this with regard to the materials used, because that's really, really important, and the longevity of something like that is really, really important. I just wondered what sort of two local people that have turned up and support the principle but don't support the design, and I think that's again really, really important. I just wonder what other local community people have, how many sort of consultations, who's been consulted on that through the process that's got it so far, and what those people think about it. And I don't know whether we have that information, but I think it'd be useful for us to help make a decision, because I'm sort of hovering on refusal at the moment, mainly because of the materials and the stuff like that. So, but if we could have that information, Chair, that would be good.
Thanks for that, Phil. Crystal, can you just make a note of these before I come back to you, please, because we'll do them all together. Councillor Sharples, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm a brigger. I was born in Bamber Bridge, and I can remember, in fact, as a 6-year-old, going down to Yankee Camp, because it still existed, although it wasn't occupied then. And playing as a kid there, and we learnt from local residents all the history, and people told us about there were some gravestones actually in that Yankee Camp, and they told us about the people that had died there, because it was like a hospital as well. Yeah, I take John's comment about the materials. I know absolutely nothing about the materials, so we thank you for your comments, and I would like to look at this and say, well, can we have another look at the materials? But I'm certainly for it. I think it's great. It's great for Bamber Bridge. It's great for South Bristol, and I think it's important that we remember what went on in those days. So I'm going to second approval.
Okay, thanks for that. Gareth, over to you, please.
Thank you, Chair. As a sculptor, I'm never against a sculpture going up, so it's hard for me to. But you don't know. There you go. I am a sculptor. Anyway, because of the concerns about materials, could I almost ask what the material is that he's considering? I'm assuming that's what his hands up.
Hang on, just Gareth, John, just hang on a minute. Just hang on. I think what Gareth's going to do, and he sounds like he's better qualified than most, he's going to make probably the same point. And I think what the point's being made, and what we'll do, just make the point, Gareth. Yeah. We'll bring Chris back, and then we'll probably bring John forward again just to come back. So it's not just yet, but Gareth finished.
Based on the design that I've seen, if I was making that particular one, it's not that hard to change again the convex concave thing, because of the way it'll be cut. I don't think that would be a big problem for whoever's been contracted to do it. The design would be the more expensive bit to change in visually, because of the way that, well, I'm guessing it's basically being done on CAD and then being cut somewhere, basically. So the design would be the cost element, really, would add to the cost if someone has to do a redesign. Materials, again, there's probably quite a lot of choices, and I don't think that would make a significant difference to how it would be done, depending on what kind of material you use. And I would certainly agree with, again, the Yorkshire stone and so on. That seems to make a lot of sense to me as well. So I would actually want to propose deferral in order to get some of those things assessed. So yeah, certainly something we need to remember. I'm not sure quite celebrates the right word, in that obviously it was a bit of a tragic incident in many respects, and it wasn't a particularly good event for anyone, but certainly need to remember it, absolutely. And yeah, it's a good local story, and yeah, I would say I'd like to propose deferral so that the materials and the design, if that's affordable, can be looked at.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor. What I want to do, John, could you just come forward again, please? And then I'll bring the officer back in, if that's okay. We've got a unique situation here. We've had 4 speakers. We've had 1 refusal, 1 deferral, 1 for, plus supported.
So just one quick one. There was a consultation that went out in around April time, and I know quite a lot of us in the area responded to it, but none of it seemed to feed through to the application.
Sorry, thanks, John. Okay, useful.
Okay. And then in response to the materials, I think, I saw something similar. I was in York today looking at some sites outside the Asda where a retail park was on. It was exactly the same materials, the same look. It it made me wince. If there's one opportunity to do this, and let's kind of do it right. And I think in cost of materials, I deal with building products all the time. I mean, a cast product, a cast stone looking product, I think would be much more suitable and probably about equal in cost.
Right, John, stay there. Chris.
You're not making this easy on me tonight. I mean, design's obviously subjective. There is a condition recommended in regards to materials, but I appreciate such a condition wouldn't then allow the public to have a further opportunity to comment on whatever material is agreed, and it also wouldn't allow the committee to. So I wouldn't suggest going down the route. I mean, if you are concerned about materials, I wouldn't suggest imposing a condition recommended that materials are agreed later, because it's so important. Appreciate Councillor Smith recommended refusal of the application. I mean, that in effect is booting it out, come back and start again. It adds a lot to the time frame. But given that there isn't in principle issues with what's been proposed, a deferral to me would seem the more logical way, where the go away, have conversations with the arm of the council, that is the applicant, and come back with a revised scheme.
Okay, very useful, that, Chris. Thank you. Councillor Adams, then Councillor Mary Green, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's a sensible approach, to be honest. I mean, very much supportive of this and want to see it happen. But I think taking John's concerns into account, and obviously others, I think it's important we do get this right, and I think we all do want to see it. It's just a case of making sure that it's right for everyone involved. And just to say, Councillor Watson, I wasn't meaning that we were celebrating what happened. It was clear the fact that we definitely should remember them. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Adams. Councillor Mary Green, please.
Yeah, I'd just like to say I'd like to second Councillor Watson's proposal to defer it for further information on materials and improvements on the materials. So I'll second it. Okay, thanks for that, Mary. And I think John's point has resonated really, in terms of you only have one opportunity to do this. So it looks like a sensible compromise all round. So Jodie, can you advise us how we need to take this, please? Is that everyone? Yeah, it was you. Councillor John Esketh, please.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Does this sculpture represent both sides of the battle? That's what I want to know. And who were the winners?
Well, John, I can tell you that history is written by the victors, so I don't know who won, but I'm telling you that's what normally happens. Sorry, John. I think John can answer that. Away we go. Let's get that answered, and I'll bring Phil in, and then we'll go to some sort of advice from our legal officer.
Who won? I don't think there were any winners that day, were there?
Right, okay, that's it. We'll move on. Good answer.
These situations. Well, it's more a commemoration. I mean, I think battle is probably not always the right word to use in this situation. I mean, from the sculpture I saw, I don't think it does enough for William Crossland. And, you know, I don't know if you want to show it again on the screen. I find it quite cartoon-like and not particularly appropriate for the occasion.
Right, what I'm going to do here, I think, fair question, John, and John's trying to answer it. But if we go with the deferral option here, which it looks like we're going to the vote for shortly after Jodie's advised us, that could be part of the consultation too. Please, if that's okay. I'm going to bring Stephen in here.
Yeah, just quickly, John, have you written in with those comments to us in respect of the application?
Yes, part of the consultation. I can forward those to...
Yeah, please, and that can be part of our debate now in the deferral.
Right. Yeah, so should I contact Charlotte? We spoke today, didn't we? And I'll get those forwarded on.
Okay, well done, Jodie.
Right, my understanding is we have a motion to approve, which was moved by Councillor Adams. I just wanted to check that that was still the case, and that was seconded by Councillor Sharples. And then we have a motion to defer, which was proposed by Councillor Watson, seconded by Councillor Green.
Yeah, I think Councillor Adams has withdrew his...
That's
what. Is that right, Councillor?
In which case, if Councillor Adams has
Then, sorry, and Councillor Smith, you're going to withdraw your refusal on the basis of a deferral as well.
I didn't actually propose for refusal. I said I was tempted to, depending on what I heard today, but so I didn't propose refusal.
Okay.
If I did, I'll withdraw it. But I think more importantly, part of going forward with this, if it is deferred, is communication with the local people. They need to have a say in what it is, and not only they need to have a say, is what happened previously with these type of arrangements, is there's normally 2 or 3 examples of, and the local community look at the designs and take a vote on the design, if that's what it is, because that's really important that somebody doesn't just make it up as they go along. And with regard to Councillor Hesker's point, we're in danger of rewriting history if you're not careful.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Smith. But I think what you've done, John, you've done. I think you've done a good job here, and Paula. You've made us all sit up and think. And I think what we're going to do is get the best outcome for everyone. So, Jodie.
As the proposal to approve has been withdrawn, we have a deferment to vote on.
Okay, I'm going to go to the vote. It's going to be, the proposer was Councillor Gareth Watson and seconded by Councillor Mary Green. So, away you go, vote. How do I vote? Was it Caleb? How do I? Hey everyone, that was interesting. Jodie, can you confirm the vote, please?
Members have resolved unanimously to defer the application in respect of the land opposite Ye Old Hob Inn on the basis that the materials and the design be reassessed.
Okay, everyone. So that's my stint as chair over. One more item left. So thanks for the people who've stayed. Appreciate it. Just one last thing, but it's not for noting. When I first moved to South Ribble, I signed for Bamber Bridge Football Club. I can assure you there was plenty of battles at Bamber Bridge at Irongate.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry to have had to give you James Flannery as the chair for that item, but thanks very much, Councillor Flannery. Thanks for that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will move on to item number 9 this evening. 14 Liverpool Road, Penwortham. And Janice, if you would like to introduce this item.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So the application relates to the 1260 Craft and Crust premises at 14 Liverpool Road. The site is within the Penwortham District Centre, with the immediate area being a mix of commercial and residential properties. So planning permission was granted in January 2019 for the conversion of the former supermarket building. Sorry, I think that should be 2017. The conversion of the former supermarket building to form 3 units comprising of 2 A1 retail units and an A3 restaurant. The proposal also included a new shop front, windows, doors and cladding, and these 2 slides just illustrate the before and after. So condition 2 was imposed, requiring the development be carried out in accordance with the approved plans. This shows the internal layout of the 3 units, but please note that the subsequent planning permission was granted for the change of use of one of the retail units to a drinking establishment, which has now become ginger ale. So the application seeks a variation of condition 2 in order to regularise the internal layout of the 1260 Craft and Crust premises, as it was not done in accordance with the approved plans. The kitchen has been relocated and there's a larger bar area which incorporates the pizza oven, and what was to be the kitchen is now a VIP seating area. So since the 1260 Craft and Crust commenced operation, there have been many complaints from the residents of the apartments above, with the main issue being noise. A noise impact assessment was submitted with the parent application, which included mitigation measures. These were based on the approved internal layout. A new noise assessment has therefore been carried out based on the existing new internal layout. Environmental Health have reviewed the relevant acoustic documents. The original acoustic report included specification for installation works to the structure of the property. A subsequent task followed these works, identified overall compliance with the agreed insulation levels, but did highlight a slight exceedance at 125 Hz, although this was minimal. Following the lifting of national lockdown, the site was reopened and monitoring undertaken across the site. The monitoring provided actual sound levels for the venue, and these have been used to assess the impact against the installation level. It again highlights a general compliance with the specified scheme, with a slight 0.9 decibel exceedance at 125 Hz, which is not detectable by the human ear. Additionally, Environmental Health have fully investigated an alleged statutory noise nuisance from the venue to the first floor flat and concluded that no statutory nuisance exists. Environmental Health have no objections to the application on the grounds of significantly adverse impact in line with the NPPF. Finally, one of my slides is missing. So I'm just showing a slide that just showed the Craft and Crust in the context of other premises, which is a commercial area within the Penwitham District Centre, which local plan policy E4 seeks to protect and enhance. The application is recommended for approval with the addition of the condition as reported on the update sheet regarding the outside seating area. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for your presentation, Janice. Do we have a Mr. Simon Webster? Okay, Simon, you have 4 minutes, okay?
Good evening, Chair and Councillors. My name is Simon Webster. I'm the Managing Director of Red Acoustics. I'm a full member of the Institute of Acoustics. Red Acoustics are an independent consultants in acoustics, noise and vibration, and we have over 60 years of combined experience within the company. We're here on behalf of the applicant to provide comment on this planning application with regards to noise. To provide context, Red Acoustics were initially appointed in December 2018 to undertake a noise impact assessment for the conversion from A1 retail use to A3 and A1 use. This noise impact assessment was undertaken with prior consultation with South Ribble Environmental Health Department. The noise impact assessment verified plant noise limits and assessed airborne noise transfer from the proposed ground floor units to first floor flats directly above. These are the same set of assessments that Red Acoustics have previously undertaken for approved A3 spaces in South Ribble. A scheme of noise mitigation was proposed, which included a high mass acoustic ceiling acoustic wall linings, and acoustically rated facade throughout. During the construction phase, Red Acoustics attended site to inspect these works. At completion of the works, Red Acoustics undertook commissioning tests which verified the noise mitigation had been successful for reducing airborne noise transfer to residential spaces above. These works provided a marked acoustic enhancement to the ground floor unit, which was formerly used as a retail space. And as you know, this change of use application was approved. Following completion of these works, extensive measures have since been undertaken by our client to mitigate other operational noise. These include isolation pads under tables to mitigate noises from glasses on tables, soft flooring in the cellar to mitigate barrel noise, foliage around columns to mitigate patron noise transfer, water pressure reducing valves to reduce water noise, rubber seals and soft closures on doors. The pizza oven flue extraction rate has been lowered. A soil vent pipe has been capped off that was open to bedrooms upstairs. And hand towels have now replaced hand dryers. All of which have successfully mitigated other operational activities. To verify compliance with the advised operational noise levels, a noise survey was undertaken by Red Acoustics earlier this year over a busy weekend period between the 23rd and 28th of July. The survey report was submitted to South Ribble Environmental Health Department, who have confirmed by their consultee responses and independent noise monitoring their approval with no objections and recommend that the noise condition is marked as acceptable for minimising impact on residential amenity above. The current layout, which forms this change of condition, has been commissioned and assessed by Red Acoustics and satisfies the requirements set by South Ribble Borough Council for the change of use. The application is for the change of layout from the originally proposed layout with 101 seating occupancy to the current layout with a reduced 68-person seating occupancy. Reverting to the original layout would not only increase seating occupancy by 33 people, but also relocate the kitchen, pizza oven and associated bar areas to a more central location. This may then result in unknown impacts on the residents above, as internal services would have to be relocated. On this basis, the current layout has been robustly assessed for noise impact and approved by South Ribble Council Environmental Health Department, we fully support this variation and see no reason why this application should be refused on the grounds of noise. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, well spoken, Simon. Thank you. Janice, the complainant isn't here, are they not? No? No, okay. Councillor Howarth, are you finding that difficult?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am one of the ward members for Harricombe Priory, which this property is in. I asked for this to come before the planning committee because I've had a number of conversations and discussions with the residents who live above, and they really did feel that while they can't be here tonight, they did want the planning committee to be fully cognizant of their complaints and their objections, and they wanted it to come before committee because they do feel they're not particularly being listened to. If I was a member now of the committee, I might be asking, how did it come to this? Because if the original plans have been adhered to, you wouldn't be sitting here now considering a variance to them. So the committee is damned if it does, and it's damned if it doesn't. If you do pass this application, you're effectively sending out a message that says, well, you can have a planning application and then go away and do whatever you want and come back a couple of years later and we'll just nod it through. And if you refuse it, as has just been said, you're effectively closing the premises down because they would have to go back to the original planning permission, despite all the investment that's gone into that area and the improvement that's been made to what was a grotty end of the district centre. I mean, I appreciate you can only consider the evidence that's been put before you and the sound readings that have been taken. But I've had the advantage of being up into the flats above, and I've had the advantage of being a customer in the VIP area, being a local VIP myself. And what appears to be an acceptable background noise when you're sitting having a pizza talking with friends is not necessarily an acceptable background noise when you're sitting upstairs trying to listen to the TV and the noise is being generated from downstairs. So, as I say, I appreciate you can only consider the evidence that's put before you. I don't have any evidence to dispute that. Mitigation measures have been put in place. I've read the conditions. I'm not sure they will greatly add anything to noise reduction. But I would ask you to consider one additional condition and an amendment to the application. And I'm sure Councillor Flannery may well support me on this. The other establishments along that row all have a time limit on outside seating, which I believe is 8 o'clock. This establishment doesn't. So for consistency, there's been a reference in the objections to the outside seating area being below one of the flats. I would ask you to consider, if you're minded to approve this, that you put a condition on that limits the use of that outside area to 8 o'clock along with the other premises along that row. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Howard. Do we have Wayne Bretherton? Good evening, Wayne. If you'd like to come to just press the speak button and you will have 4 minutes to make your presentation, okay?
Thank you, and good evening, Chair. Good evening, councillors. I first opened the business Christmas 2019, investing £150,000 of my own personal money and employing 22 staff, delivering overall an excellent experience for our customers, where our reviews and popularity is overwhelmingly positive. Since then, we've faced the worst crisis ever to hit the hospitality industry with the COVID situation. However, regardless of whether we've operated fully, partially, whether we've offered table service or takeaway during the 11 months of lockdown, we've been subject to relentless complaints, mainly from one household. Of the 3 flats above the premises, only one has complained relentlessly, including criticisms of the business, the council and the landlord of the property. The misconceptions, inaccuracies and misinformation within the complaints because the complainants have never experienced dining with us firsthand. The complaints are not a true reflection of how the business operates today, and this has been recognised by the recommendation to approve from the officers. We've worked professionally and respectfully in doing everything possible to find an outcome which benefits the complainants, including even offering to purchase the property at a fair market value. Every complaint I've received, I've tried to address and implement recommendations from both your planning officers and environmental health. Whatever we do to address the complaints, it's either never enough or new issues suddenly arise. The goalposts and demands have changed and increased even when the business was operating a delivery-only service with no customers on site and being run by 3 staff. I've spent more than £4,000 in consultants' fees, equipment and acoustic measures, and whilst it satisfies your specialists, officers, it's still not enough for the complainant. As already mentioned by the previous speaker, on our behalf, we've installed a significant number of added further measures, such as a rubber floor to the ceiling, hand dryers. I've employed the complainant who works as a handyman to lower the ceiling and add further insulation to the cellar. Rubber seals on door casings to cushion the closure, slow closures on doors. I've paid for the plumber to investigate why noise was transmitting into the bedroom from the soil stack, and he found that the soil stack was still open and accessing the child's bedroom. We closed that off and re-bricked the work. The pizza oven extraction was limited, acoustic pads under tables. We changed how we operated. We now operate a full table service, a full table reservation system where diners are allocated 1 hour and 45 minutes, and we are respectful with our opening times. We allow bookings until 9 o'clock in the evening. Foliage was fitted to support pillars where the complainant believed customers tapped on. I know there's a huge debate in terms of the operation, whether we're a restaurant or bar. Food sales significantly and consistently outsell wet sales, and I can evidence that. The reality is this application is to approve a variation of the internal layout. If it's refused tonight, then we would have to revert to the original layout. The original layout with planning permission is very similar in relation to the storage facilities and the toilet location that we operate currently. The original layout has a capacity of 101 people. Our current layout has a capacity of just 68. That's 33 less people in the venue. And there's no doubt human noise would be much greater in the original. The physical variation between layouts, as mentioned, is the kitchen, pizza oven and bar location, and it's accurate. The original layout will be placed in a more problematic area for the complainant where most noise enters their property. Operational noise from the kitchen, the use of pans, pot washing, etc. would without hesitation cause further complaints, increase noise transmission from the current location and not resolve any issues. Therefore, standing here or sitting here today, I implore the committee to agree with the recommendation of the officers, who I thank for their time and hard work, and please approve this change in layout. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Bretherton. Thanks for your presentation. I will now open up to committee. Councillor Flannery and then Councillor Smith.
Thanks, Chair. I think what, and the group who are left in the room here, obviously have witnessed what we've been through tonight. This is a committee of fairness. The colleagues are from different parties, but there's fairness right through what we go through. What I'd just like to say is this actual development is a good example of regeneration in the area. I know Councillor Alves mentioned it was a blight before. And what you're seeing here is an SME is prepared to come here tonight with his team. They've all been affected by COVID-19. We all know that. As a matter of fact, we've got a unique situation here. You've got the four councillors, myself, Councillor Smith, Adams and Councillor Howarth, who are all on the business recovery group, who are all seeing firsthand what these businesses have been going through. These owners live with uncertainty. They're not big businesses, they're local people. They create jobs, they pay the rates. And all the mitigations, what they've faced here, from what I can read and see, have been considered. Environmental health have supported it. There's a first. But also, you know, the CUTA consultants, excellent, what you did very well there, very articulated your case very well. Wayne's just spoke there very passionately. I just want to explore one little thing, because I think Councillor Howarth made a point, and it's a fair point, about consistency for the other. We've struggled with this consistency for a long while about outside space. So I would like to explore that, but I would also like to propose approval as recommended by our officers for this application. So thank you.
With added conditions or not?
Just want to see fairness. So it's being raised, I've just been past this, which was part of the pack. I didn't really understand. Have we still got inconsistency in terms of outside space on this block?
Janice?
That's why I'm proposing that condition that was on the update sheet to bring it in line with the ginger ale and the 16 on the hill, which are on the same block. So they'd all have the same outside space.
Which I think is what we're looking for. And is the applicant being consulted as well? We spoke to it? Yeah, that's okay, yeah. Yeah, that's it. So with that condition, please, Chair. Thank you.
So approval with the condition that it comes into line with outside seating with the other establishments.
For fairness, yeah.
Okay, Councillor Smith?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think the condition is condition 7. It's an extra condition, isn't it? Condition 7. I'm not going to say any more, Chair. And I wish them all the luck in their business and the success of it. And I will second that proposal. Thank you.
Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, again, very straightforward for me. I think there's extensive mitigations that have been put in place. I think it's a very well-run business and it's great for the community. And as someone who hasn't sat in the VIP area, I can say that it's very much of benefit to the community. And I think, you know, as Councillor Flannery has suggested, we should be supporting local business as much as possible after the last 18 months. So I would have seconded it, but I'm happy to support it. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Adams. I've sat at the table in this establishment and was asked, please stand up because this is for dining only. So I stood up, I imbibed my liquid libation and left. Councillor Trafford.
Hopefully this will be quick. Could you just please tell me, Chair, what the full recommendation is for the new condition? I just missed it.
The new condition is that the outside seating at the moment, they're allowed to have outside seating for longer than the two establishments that are next door to them. And we want to bring it into line so that we reduce the outside seating of the establishment, okay?
Yeah. Can I ask a question again then? Another one.
It just proves I was listening.
Yeah.
Yes, you can answer. Yeah, go on.
Could I just ask what the reason is for that reduction in outside seating times? I appreciate consistency is important, but some things can be consistently bad. So I just wanted to hear why that's a good thing before I vote on it.
Janice, would you instruct the newbie as to why?
The original permission didn't have any conditions on to control the use of the outside seating area. It was a restaurant. It had a condition on to restrict the hours of opening of the bifold doors along the front. So because the other similar establishments, well, they're actually bars on that block, have an outside seating area condition on, we're imposing this one to bring it in line, but it doesn't impact on the craft and crust, the business, because of the opening times anyway. So it doesn't make any difference because the opening times that he operates is within this time limit anyway.
That makes total sense. Thank you. I just wanted to check. Cheers.
Councillor Trafford, are you sure? You look rather perplexed then. Are you happy with that? Okay. Right, looking round the Councillor Watson.
Do we need to consider an amendment that Councillor Adams be invited to the VIP area?
Right, do we have any other proposals on this application? No, so Jodie, if you can explain what we're voting for.
Yeah, it's for approval, subject to the conditions in the report and in the addendum, and it is the addendum condition that relates to bringing the seating in line with the other premises, and that is to 8 o'clock.
Okay, thanks for that, Jodie. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if we'd like to go to the vote, please. Okay, I think Councillor Adams is after a VIP pass somehow. Jodie, would you like to tell us how that vote went?
Members have unanimously approved the application in respect of 14 Liverpool Road, and that is subject to conditions in the report and the addendum.
Thanks very much for that, Jodie. We'll just have a comfort break for the elder statesman.
In the driving seat.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, item 10 on tonight's agenda, a response to Chorley Council in respect of a planning application for a new prison. And this is a response. Stephen.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. This is an application that Chorley Borough Council are processing, and they have sought our views. So up on the screen now, you've got the shot that shows the existing Wymot prison, and you've got Garth to the left of the screen, and then you can see the residential, which you gain access to off Moss Lane. So to the north of that, you've got the area where the sort of small farm area is, the bowling club and the boiler house. So if you just pass to the next slide, Janice. So the overall site is 43.5 hectares, and as I've just said, it's adjacent to the two existing prisons. The submission comprises the following elements: an outline application for a new 74,531 square metre prison with all matters reserved apart from access, parking and landscaping. They've shown us sort of schematic layout that you can see on the screen. So this shows 7 new house blocks with a total of 1,715 prisoners, and they're talking about those blocks being up to 4 stories in height. It's described as a training and resettlement prison to employ 643 directly at the prison and 230 indirect jobs. There's also an outline application for a new smaller boiler house, which will be displaced by the new prison, and this will be set centrally within the site. The only full element of the application is for the replacement of the bowling green that, as I just said, is displaced, and clubhouse, and this will be set into the open fields to the southwest of the main prison access internal road adjacent to the roundabout. It's described that there will be comprehensive additional landscaping, particularly around the northern boundary, which will be the most open boundary. So that's at the top of the screen there. But they do have to have an area of, they're talking about 15 metres standoff before the landscaping, so there's an area of surveillance around the perimeter. Access into the grouping of prisons will remain off Moss Lane, which will mean in the wider highway network access from South Ribble, either via Dunkirk Lane, Slater Lane, and then on to Ullswanton Lane, or within Chorley Borough via Southport Road. They're suggesting it's envisaged there will be 223 to 253 peak two-way trips to the new prison. The overall site is in the green belt, but the greater part of it is indicated as a previously developed site in Chorley's local plan. So the recommendation I've set out in the report is just offers a comment for us to respond to Chorley 2, and obviously any further points that members wish to raise. And the points suggested are that we'd want to see a robust assessment of all the junctions, considering the highway capacity in the areas within our borough, taking into account existing and committed development, because as you know, we've got the test track under construction at the moment. We'd want to see evidence that the principle of the development in the green belt has been fully scrutinised, and the very special circumstances to allow development in the green belt are met. We'd want consideration of sustainable access to link into our Green Links programme, and if possible to seek a contribution to enhance access if the development goes ahead, because what we're very mindful of, that a large proportion of the prison officers and others who work at the prison come from within Chorley Borough to go to the prison, and if we're seeing that extra traffic on Ullswanton Lane, there are other means of getting there by cycle and on foot. And there's an existing track at the head of Nixon Lane that's within the land owned by the prison, as I understand it, which could be enhanced to make a really good off-route track. So we'd like consideration of that. Also, adherence to the principles of social value, both in terms of the construction and supply chain. And finally, we would like to seek discussions with the Ministry of Justice to put those points forward ourselves to them in person. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for your presentation, Stephen. Okay, let's just bear in mind this is our response. It's not a planning application as such. So, do we have Paul Parker wishing to speak on our response? Okay, Mr. Parker, you have 4 minutes, okay? Can you...
Oh, sorry. Okay, first and foremost, I object to the prison development in principle. Whilst I appreciate the determination is made by Chorley Council, I felt it necessary to apprise you of my concerns. Everyone, no doubt, will have a different view on the prison development dependent on where they live along the length and breadth of Unswanton Lane. There's absolutely no doubt that, for example, that the residents of Wymont Village will be severely impacted. There's also the potential for habitat and species loss, and also there's concerns around traffic and road safety, definitely. Inside even the MOJ's own socio-economic statement, this requires further closer scrutiny to determine the real-world benefits that this development will allegedly bring the environment. Let's not also forget that this is an inappropriate development in the Green Belt. There are also significant points raised by, for example, United Utilities around drainage proposals. Also, the Lee Local Flood Authority has an objection against flood mitigations. LCC Highways and Transport have not been able to respond to the planning application themselves, and also Chorley's Environmental Health have not responded to the Environmental Health analysis commissioned by the MOJ that indicates there are heavy metals and also polyaromatic hydrocarbons in deposits in the site already. All of these concerns and objections, great or small, are indicative that this is a major and complex development with wider effects and in the wrong place in my view. My own concerns are the preservation of the green belt, loss of habitat and red listed species not counted in the MOJ commissioned ecological impact assessment, and also the traffic and road safety. And on that note, the LCC October 2019 traffic survey indicated that on average 4,000 vehicles use Unswanton Lane every working day. 600 of those 4,000 vehicles have registered speeds of 41 to 65 miles an hour, and there were two outliers even recorded at 100 miles per hour on that road, if you can believe it. That's 600 motoring convictions missed every single working day, and this minor back road has become an untapped revenue stream for I would argue, for the police authority. The MOJ Commission Transport Assessment was also conducted in 2021, and this shows that on average 4,500 vehicles use Unswanton Lane every working day. That's an increase of 500 vehicles since 2019, but don't forget that's during the pandemic, so this number could potentially be higher. At the junction particularly of Moss Lane and Unswanton Lane, which leads to the prison, during the hours of 7 to 900, 805 vehicles turned in or out of Moss Lane, either accessing the prison or leaving it. 289 vehicles use Unswanton Lane solely as a link road to travel north to south or south to north. So the prison traffic outnumbers through traffic by a ratio of 2.7 to 1, nearly 3 to 1. That's quite significant in my view. The 2021 report also states that 114 visits to new prison will be made every single day. Add to that the existing prison visits and assume 228 visits in total. That's 456 journeys to and from the prison every single day. And the report says itself and recognises that 100% of visitors are assumed to use cars because sustainable transport options are not attractive. Ladies and gentlemen, Unswanton Lane is a classified unnumbered roadway. It has around 17 bends, curves and corners along its length. It's used by pedestrians, cyclists, cycle clubs, horse riders, horse carriage users, farm machinery, and the only sanctuary for these types of users in a dangerous situation are the drainage ditches either side of the road. The majority of current traffic appears to be generated mainly from the operation of the prison, with prison traffic outnumbering through traffic by nearly 3 to 1 at the 0700-0900 peak. The effect on traffic flows and volumes of the test track development site has not even been considered in the application for this new prison. This road is already a risk to its users. How can it be safe to add more vehicles with the development of the prison? And how can this prison claim to be a green, sustainable development when it will encourage more prison staff, visitors, services and traffic? I am conscious that I've taken compressed a lot of information into 4 minutes. So I have previously emailed the content of this presentation to all committee members, including the reserves. I support the further clarification South Ribble planning are seeking. And in the closing seconds, I would like to thank you for listening and your time.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Parker. You had 20 seconds extra. That's why your alarm went off. Okay. Thanks for your presentation, Mr. Parker. Thank you. Councillor Michael Green, neighbouring ward councillor. Just before you come in, Councillor Green, no, just come in. Can you all go back to your, when this is over, this meeting tonight? I mean, my group know that you need to register 48 hours before the planning committee. In the past, I've stopped Councillor Watson from speaking, I've stopped Councillor Foster from speaking, and I've even stopped my own brother from speaking, but it's a massive thing we're doing here, so I have given you leeway, Councillor Green, but I won't be giving anyone leeway in the future if we just all make a note of that. Okay, Councillor Green.
Thanks, Chairman. Good evening, colleagues. With regard to this application, I do have some mixed views on it. Can I first of all thank the officers for what is a good report, dealing with a lot of the pertinent issues. But just to expand on some of those, firstly, the proposal is for a very large and imposing development situated right in the Greenbelt. I am very concerned about the impact upon the openness of the Greenbelt, which we do value. I therefore support that recommendation to explore whether very special circumstances to build in this location can be robustly demonstrated. Whilst the report does refer to biodiversity, I would encourage you to seek further assurances that there will in actual fact be a net gain for the development. Turning to economic development, this is to be welcomed, of course, with additional employment opportunities. It is important, however, to ensure that local residents do have a fair opportunity to secure jobs and apprenticeships, and that local businesses have an opportunity to play their part in the supply chain. My biggest concern, as usual, is that we ensure that the improvements to infrastructure are made in order to support a significant development of this nature. Ullswalton Lane and the adjoining School Lane is a winding country lane with a lack of pavements and lighting, but with dangerous bends. It is used by pedestrians, cyclists, horse riders and farm equipment, in addition to cars and HGVs. The speed limit is 40 miles an hour, which reduces to 20 in the more built-up area at the South Ribble end, but these limits are not enforced and are not adhered to. This development would virtually double the prison population, creating a prison city, together with the employees, visitors and supply companies. Whilst we can promote pedestrian and cycling routes, and should do so, the reality is that in this rural location, over 90% of journeys will be by motorcar, and car sharing by the staff is unlikely due to the majority of the staff being shift workers, and the visitors, as the report sets out, 100% of those would be travelling by car. The impact upon the junctions and the highway network, both within the Moss Side area and across other parts of South Ribble, need to be robustly assessed, Chairman, including the cumulative impact of other committee developments which are already in the process and have already been approved by this committee. If this development is to be permitted, then we would need significant mitigation, I would submit, to avoid an unacceptable impact upon highway capacity and the safety of road users. This should include the junctions of School Lane with Dunkirk Lane and Slater Lane need improvements to be carried out. A contribution needs to be sought from the development in terms of dualling the A582, the B5253 and other roads in the vicinity. Significant traffic calming scheme needs to be implemented at the South Ribble end of Ullswalton Lane to include gateway treatments, road narrowing and a Pegasus pedestrian crossing. And we need, and I've just lost my page on the screen, forgive me colleagues, and we need public transport improvements, including a fully funded regular bus service to Leyland, Chorley and Preston, linking up with railway stations. And I would submit a significant contribution should be considered towards the reopening of a railway station at Midjole, which this council has supported, and studies have been carried out on that, which is close to the development site. And further to that, a lot of the prisoners will be coming potentially from the Liverpool area, and their families will be visiting from that area. So providing them with a means of access to the prison would be helpful. So there's a long list in there, but I would submit it to yourselves to consider putting those forward as schemes if indeed this is deemed as a suitable location. But there are significant concerns over whether it's a suitable location in the first place. I thank you, Chairman and colleagues, for listening to me this evening and for being given the opportunity to consider this. Yes, this development is within the boundaries of Chorley Borough Council, but I will submit that the potential negative impacts of this will be more likely to be felt by South Ribble residents rather than the residents of Chorley. So it's very important and appropriate for yourselves to consider this. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for your presentation, Councillor Green. Sometimes I make these decisions and I'm glad I do. Well presented, very well done. Councillor Mrs Mary Green, Councillor Adams, Councillor Flannery.
Thank you, Chair. I don't really want to reiterate everything that everybody said. I think Councillor Green's covered most of the points that I'm coming to, but I'll very quickly go through these notes that I've made about it. I feel there's pros and cons to this application. As ward councillor for this area, and the area that's most affected by this development, I know the area very well. There are many economic benefits to this application in that there'll be large-scale employment, people moving and coming to live in the area. It will create trade with the supply chain locally of people, other industries and shops and businesses in the local area will pull off from the prison, and give training for the young and unemployed. Those are the pros. The cons are this development will cause massive problems on the roads, not just locally at Moss Side, but across Leyland and even across South Ribble as a whole, because it'll all back up and hit that bypass and then it'll block up from there onwards. It's as we've heard, it's a very windy country lane designed for horses and carriages, not speeding traffic and not the traffic with the volume that there is. Let's not forget that the existing two prisons, there's already excessive traffic from those two prisons and the travelling at speed. If there's no infrastructure improvements have been made on this road while these two prisons have been there. So who's to say that they will put infrastructure in when they get a third one? And this is the point I'm meaning that I think we need to be, not telling you your job, but I think we need to be very forceful with them about what we want, because no doubt about it, they're not a little shopkeeper, they're a government department and they've got no resistance to funds. They've got funds to do what we need in our area for our residents, and that's what's my concern. There needs to be definitely, as Councillor Green has said, needs to be traffic calming measures installed. There's no pavements. You walk down there, you've got your life in your hands if you walk down there, dog walking or whatever. There's access to Nixon Woods from the fields at the other side, and people generally dog walk across that road, cross over to the woods, and they can't see traffic coming. They're coming at that faster speed. I'm afraid of some accident happening now, never mind when there's potentially double the traffic. The lighting's very poor down the lane, you know, in winter, when you're coming down there, it's very poor. And unfortunately, Moss Side, with it being a bit low lying, you tend to get a lot of mist off the fields, you know, so your vision's very bad anyway. And I feel like Councillor Green said, a contribution from the Ministry of Justice needs to be towards the reopening of Midshall Station, definitely. To enable the visitors to the prisoners, as he said, a large percentage do come from Liverpool, Manchester as well, but a lot from Liverpool. So you'll get visitors coming from Liverpool. They can travel there easier and they won't have as far to get a taxi to the prison as they have now from Leyland Station. Although we've got a scant bus service, it is very scant. We could do to have a more frequent one. And no way, as it said, will they car share, because it's impossible. They work shift work, they start in the morning till lunch, they start at lunch till evening, they work nights, you know, they're all different times of the day, so they can't share, in all fairness to them. So in conclusion, I feel that South Ribble and Chorley Council need to put strong conditions with the developer, LCC Highways to get the infrastructure and highways traffic calming things in, and the Ministry of Justice, so the needs for our residents are met. This is the time, I believe, that we can gain as much as we can for our borough for this, to help this escalation in traffic. When the residents of the Test Track estate also begin to use our roads, there'll be a traffic blockage at the junction of Slater and Dunkirk Lane, and even back up to the bypass, as I've said. So please, I implore you, when you go, can you please pass all our concerns to Chorley Borough Council so they can follow this up with the Ministry of Justice and get as best as we can for this borough as well as Chorley. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Green. Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to Mr. Parker for coming. I don't know the area myself that well, but I do think it's very important to hear local residents and also board members as well. For me, I think there's quite clearly some issues here, particularly the highways issues that have been raised. I think, you know, the need for alternative methods of transport, i.e. cycling and others, should be promoted. I'm glad that Councillor Michael Green hopefully can use his influence at the county to bring these issues to the front, because as we've discussed tonight, it's LCC are in charge when it comes to highways, and they're the ones who can truly have an impact on this. So I hope that will be done. I agree in terms of the need for public transport improvements. I think we would all echo that, and for that to be across the board, not just in that area as well. In terms of the wider scope of this, I think there needs to be a jobs and skills plan if this proposal was to go forward, in terms of how it would benefit the locality and the residents, in terms of apprenticeships and other things as well. And a development like this, it needs it. For me, it shouldn't go forward without one. And you know, I also think we should raise it as South Ribble Borough Council to Chorley about the social value aspect. And I know that Stephen's already mentioned that. I do think it should fit in with our community wealth building objectives that we have at the council, particularly looking at the supply chain and other areas that we've highlighted within that. So I know this is only really for noting and for comment, and we're not really passing a judgment on it. I do think there's quite a lot of issues here that need to be mitigated against if this was to go forward. And I would also just add, finally, that we shouldn't presume that most of these people are going to come from Liverpool. I do think, you know, we don't want to do a disservice to our friends and colleagues over in Liverpool, many of whom I love. So thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Adams. I'm sure Councillor Flannery would like to come in next, and then Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, thanks, Mr. Parker. Well done for your presentation. It's always good to see people making an effort and waiting all night to do it. So congratulations there. You articulated your points very well. Stephen, the recommendations in the report, the 4 ones, are absolutely appropriate, and I think that's what we should go forward on. So I'm happy with that. But, Chair, and if you don't mind, and I'm not laughing, unless Councillor Michael Green has some information which I don't have about the inmate population demographic, to my knowledge, Weymouth Prison is a prison for a particular type of offender. Garth is a prison for category B, 4 years or more. So where was the information in this report or anywhere else to suggest that they're going to come from a particular area, like Liverpool, for example, rather than, say, another city like Manchester or any other area for that matter? So I would like to get that clarified, if that's all right, Chair.
Yeah, you can have that clarified. We'll get you some clarity in a minute. After I'm going to bring Councillor Smith in, then Councillor Mrs. Green, and then I will ask Councillor Michael Green where his information came from. Is that okay? Okay. Councillor Smith?
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's a good report, and I support all the recommendations, and I think probably what we're looking at now is how do we strengthen some of these recommendations, particularly with regard to the highways? I thought my question is, do we need to put specifics in there, or are you just picking up what has been said, and those specifics will go in after this meeting, where you will put a list of requirements in? So could I just ask that question first, really?
Yes, certainly, Councillor Smith. Stephen?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I found this one difficult because I actually live off that lane myself, so I'm very familiar with it. And there's that balance, isn't there, between a nice character in a country lane feel and then a lot of infrastructure into it that changes its character and makes it something much larger and much more urban, and possibly even encourage more speeding. So I think what we need to be saying, we want to be engaged in those conversations with the Ministry of Justice and LCC Highways, so we get a solution that aesthetically as well as physically works. Turning to the second point about who will actually be housed in the prison, we're talking about it being a prison where prisoners come to before release, training and release. And there's a suggestion that the prisoners that will be coming to it will be people who are northwest based, who are currently housed in prisons from outside of the area where they're remote from the family. So that's where the report talks about the distribution of the demographic. Yeah.
Councillor Smith?
I'm not sure whether you answer my question there, Stephen, really, with regard to, do we need to be more specific?
Yes, we will.
Do we need
we'll expand
to pick that up
significantly on
I mean,
points.
Midge Hall, you know, it's a sort of a pet thing for quite a few of us here, and it was when we were discussing the old local plan, or the local plan we've got now. It took some getting in there, I have to say, at the time, and I think the more we keep it in the profile, the better it is for everybody, to be quite honest, because it's, I mean, if you look at the sort of the drawing that we've got here, the railway runs right past the edge of it. So it's a good way, I think, of trying to sort of promote that, because it needs promoting from all areas, really, for that to happen. So we're picking up specifics now, and those will be added to it. Okay, well, I'm happy with that, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Smith. Personally, I'll bring in a moment, Mrs. Green. I'd like to see some evidence of infrastructure going in before the build goes. Because there's an old saying, if they build it, they'll come, but they won't be able to get there if we haven't got the infrastructure to deal with it. So I'd like to see some evidence that they had even if it's dualling or widening country roads. I hate the fact that it's in the green belt, but we are where we are. But if that could go in our response, Councillor Mrs. Green.
First of all, I'd like to say for Councillor Flannery, don't in any way think I've got a downer on Liverpool people, because I love Liverpool and I love Liverpool people. That wasn't a personal attack on anybody from Liverpool saying that they're more likely to be there. It's just factually that usually when there's no room in the city prisons, like Liverpool, Manchester, Cumbria or whatever, they feed out the prisoners to more distant prisons. And the point I was making about Liverpool people coming was the point for the Midgehall station, that it's got a direct link via Ormskirk into Liverpool. So it's ideal if there are any visitors coming from Liverpool visiting the prisoners, they've got a direct rail link to Midgehall, and they're not that far in a taxi, nearer and cheaper for them than coming from Leyland station in a taxi, which they do up to now. And that was the why I inferred to Liverpool, because it's got that direct, well, it could be direct link to Liverpool and make it handy for them. Manchester people, obviously, will have to come from the motorway or, from Leyland station.
They'll come strange ways.
But that's what I was meaning. It wasn't any inference that there's more criminals coming in from Liverpool. It was just factually, there's a lot of prisoners in there from Liverpool, from Manchester, Cumbria, any sort of city, really.
Councillor Smith, you may.
Yeah, just very quickly, Chair. There was a mention of Greenbelt a few minutes ago, and I think what was said before, that in Chorley's local plan, it's previously developed land. Is that correct? Or
it's got a specific identification that it is focused on that in terms of the infrastructure, in the same way as State Brewery is now. So that would then instance would be that some development would within that core area, possible impact is that doesn't override the wider green belt.
Can you repeat that, Stephen? Your microphone wasn't on, so. Councillor Green, if you turn your mic, thank you.
Yeah, sorry, it's identified as a previously developed site within the green belt in the Chorley local plan, in the same way as the brewery is in our borough, which then in principle would potentially allow some development within that core area, provided the impact isn't over and above the starting impact from the site, but that doesn't then override the wider green belt requirements that it still has to demonstrate very special circumstances because it's inappropriate developments in the green belt.
Councillor Smith.
On the basis of that, Chair, if somebody needs to propose approval of the officer's recommendations with some of the things that we've actually mentioned tonight, I would like to propose approval of that. Thank you.
I think, yeah, I mean.
Want me to read out the additional points I've noted?
Yes, you can do, Stephen. Just before you do, Councillor Flannery, are you happy? I mean, let's. If I can just have a yes or no.
Well, I'd just like to say to Mary, thanks for explaining it, but that would have been better as presented initially, because just a quick one, if you don't mind, and it is important. I've lived and contributed to the economy in South Liverpool for 30 years. I was in night school for 9 years, come from a council estate in Liverpool. The inference and negative comments I get several times a year, every year for those 30 years, are what was referred to tonight in that context of the offended reputation. So you may not think, and if you don't mind me saying, because I thank you for your response, that it's an issue which is a bit flippant. I can assure you it's not. Getting that said to you for many, many times, for many, many years, it's not comfortable. And I actually do pull people for saying that, so that's why I've done that. Okay, so I've said my piece, so that's the end of it. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Flannery. You've had your 4 minutes, Mr. Parker, and we're going to tie up now. So if Stephen, you will tie up. Councillor Green. You can either do it now or you can do it after the meeting. Do it after the meeting. Do you want to do it back on the microphone? Because obviously we're streaming live. Yeah. Okay, Councillor Flannery, that's Councillor Green is going to.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, Chairman. First of all, apologies. I didn't mean any offence in any way, shape or form whatsoever. I've got lots of friends in Liverpool. I'm a Liverpool supporter as a football team as well. No way was that meant as any slight upon the good people of Liverpool. I'm sorry, I had 4 minutes to present. The chairman allowed me to speak. I didn't want to go over that time limit, and I just summarised. The reference to Liverpool was the point about the railway line. So Midgewell Station obviously links Preston to Liverpool via Ormskirk. So if that station was open, it would be a benefit to the families that come from the Liverpool area or indeed Preston, who would have an easier method of transport to visit their families who are serving in prison. In terms of the prison numbers, I do know that of the current prison population at Garth, for instance, the neighbouring prison, a lot of the prisoners are from the big cities in the northwest. Liverpool being one of them, but not the only one, obviously Manchester as well. And during this consultation on this new proposal, I've attended a consultation and indeed had a private meeting as well with the Ministry of Justice, and I'd asked them the question about where the potential prisoners would be coming from, and they said principally across the northwest, as Mr. Brown has set out, across the northwest, and obviously by nature they tend to be from the bigger cities. And I said, well, any in particular? They said, well, no, the bigger cities in general, but Manchester, Liverpool, etc. So that was the context altogether, and I did not mean any slight whatsoever upon Liverpool. Apologies if you misinterpreted what I'd said, Councillor Flannery.
Thank you. Yeah, good, but appreciate it. But next time, say the northwest, and that'll sort it.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Green. Right, Stephen.
Yeah, so in addition to the points that I've set out in my report, we want further assurances on the net gain in terms of biodiversity. We want to look at the whole impact on Ullswalton Lane, on Dunkirk Lane, Slater Lane junctions, speeding, the need for significant infrastructure, the need for a gateway type feature, the need for localised narrowing, consideration of dualling in the wider area, bus service funding, Midge Hall railway station reopening, and the infrastructure going in beforehand, before any development, if it's proven that it is appropriate in the green belt. Thanks, Chair.
Or alternatively build it elsewhere. Thanks very much. So we're going on to a vote. Oh, Councillor Adams.
Sorry, just to add, you didn't add the need for, or the requirement from our point of view, of a jobs and skills plan. Okay, that's fine, as long as that's in there. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to a vote on this.
We need a
Jodie?
We've had a proposal for approval, but no seconder as yet.
Do we have a seconder for approval? Councillor Flannery?
Second. I'll do it. Done.
Okay, so we have had a proposer and a seconder. Bearing in mind it is very late. I'm sorry to the officers. Okay, we can go to the vote then. Okay, Jodie, if you would give us the result of that vote.
In respect of the application, in respect of the report regarding the application to land adjacent to HMP Garth and HMP Weymouth, members have unanimously resolved that the opinions of the officers set out in the report be submitted to Chorley Borough Council, and in addition, the concerns raised also be submitted to Chorley Borough Council, as read out by Stephen Brown.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Jodie. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for attending this evening. It's a late one, but I think we've got a lot done, haven't we, really?